Chapter 601. The newcomer was dressed in a gray robe. His eyes were dark and deep, as if they contained stars. His tall figure stood upright, and at the same time, he exuded an extraordinary aura. It was Fei Run. Fei Ren. Seeing the person's face, Yi Jinglei stopped what he was doing. His eyes were filled with hatred and resentment. This person was the thorn in his side that he wanted to get rid of. Whether it was the broken engagement with the Shao family or the death of his trusted subordinate Yi Kuang, all of these were related to Fei Run in front of him. Yi Jinglei's heart was filled with endless killing intent towards Fei Run. Little bastard, you're finally willing to show yourself. Yi Jinglei slowly put on his clothes and looked at Fei Run, who was in the sky. Now that he had shown himself, a battle was inevitable. As for Shao Nicole, who was already poisoned by the yin-yang lovemaking powder, he was not in a hurry to taste it. As long as he got rid of Fei Run, he would have plenty of time to enjoy himself. In the sky. My grandson is disobedient. As a grandfather, I have to teach him a lesson. Glancing at Yi Yunfeng and Yi Jinglei in front of the withered tree cliff, Fei Ren sneered. His tone was filled with disdain and ridicule. Although the cultivation of the two was not bad, one was at the 5th martial spirit realm, and the other was at the 6th martial spirit realm, and there was a group of Yi family warriors helping them. However, in his eyes, they were still trash. With his current strength, anyone below the 7th martial spirit realm would not be able to take a punch from him. The power of the saint rank cultivation technique, record of the overlord of Western Shu, was just that overbearing. You little bastard with a sharp tongue. At this moment, facing Fei Ren's ridicule, Yi Jinglei frowned. His face was filled with anger, and he was about to attack. Second brother, is this the Fei Ren you mentioned? Suddenly, Yi Yunfeng stepped forward and stood in front of Yi Jinglei. Although Yi Jinglei had mentioned that Yi Jinglei was just a nobody at the 2nd martial spirit realm, however, there was a sense of unease in his heart. The Fei Ren in front of them was not as simple as they had imagined. That's right, big brother. This guy's the Fei Ren who killed Yi Kuang. But don't worry, big brother. I only need less than the time for an incense stick to burn to wring this little bastard's head off. Seeing that Yi Yunfeng had stopped him, Yi Jinglei was a little surprised. His face darkened as he said, his gaze fixed on Fei Run in the sky. Fei Run, he came to save me. No, it's too dangerous here. He's no match for Yi Jinglei and Yi Yunfeng. In front of the cliff, Xiao Nico, who was tied up and unable to move, raised her head with difficulty. She looked up at Fei Run in the sky, her beautiful eyes filled with surprise and worry. As for Feng Buhui, due to his severe injuries and the lack of treatment, he had already fainted. Who is that guy? I heard that he's called Fei Run. He's from the Scorching Sun sect in the Eastern Sun region. He's the one who killed the 2nd prince's confidant, Yi Kuang. What? So fierce. Captain Yi Kuang is at the 3rd martial spirit realm. It can't be. A portion of the Yi family warriors were also doubtful of Fei Ren's strength. However, before they could think further, Yi Jinglei took the initiative to attack Fei Ren in the sky. Ghost Dust Pearl. Yi Jinglei shouted. The spiritual qi around his body was getting stronger and stronger. In a flash, it turned into countless balls of brown light and attacked Fei Ren's vital points. It was like a rainstorm, making it impossible for Fei Ren to dodge. All the blind spots were blocked. Rank 9 martial arts? Facing Yi Jinglei's attack, Fei Ren raised his eyebrows. As a direct descendant of a rank 5 family and the current 2nd prince of the Great Ming Dynasty, Yi Jinglei had a lot of trump cards. In addition, the Ghost Dust Pearl was a rare martial arts with a large area of effect. It was very powerful. However, Yi Jinglei's cultivation had broken through to the 6th martial spirit realm. Coupled with the unique power of the Overlord's record of Western Shu, Yi Jinglei was no match for him, even if he had an Earth rank martial arts. Overlord's demonic mark. With a low roar from his throat, a strange purple pattern instantly climbed up his cheek. In the next moment, Fei Ren also threw out a punch, directly facing the countless brown light balls that were attacking him. His aura was like a rainbow, breaking all martial arts with one punch. Bang! Rumble! Before the countless brown balls of light could get close to Fei Run, they were forced back by the terrifying fist and turned into nothingness. Swoosh! After defeating Yi Jinglei's attack with one punch, Fei Ren's figure disappeared. He appeared behind Yi Jinglei like a ghost and threw out another punch. Pucci, sixth martial spirit realm. How is this possible? Blood splattered, and Yi Jinglei felt an unusual chill on his chest. His face was pale, and his eyes were filled with disbelief. He did not expect that Yi Jinglei had broken through to the sixth martial spirit realm and was much stronger than him. Gotcha! Before he could finish speaking, Fei Run retracted his fist in the next moment. At the same time, he forcefully twisted his opponent's neck. The second prince of the great Ming dynasty, Yi Jinglei, was dead. Next, you guys. After dealing with Yi Jinglei, Fei Ren's gaze swept towards Yi Yunfeng and the Yi family's martial artists at the side of the Withered Tree Cliff. This time, other than Yi Jinglei, these people were also involved in the assassination of Feng Buhui and Xiao Nike. Anyone who touches the reverse scale of a dragon will die. Feng Buhui and Xiao Nike were his friends. Now that one of them was dead and the other was almost defiled, he would not let them go. Sir, I am the crown prince of the great Ming dynasty. Let's talk. Seeing Fei Ren's figure continuously approaching, Yi Yunfeng immediately panicked. His body involuntarily retreated a few steps as he said in an uneasy tone. In his opinion, even if Yi Jinglei was not Fei Ren's match, he would at least be able to fight him to a standstill. However, he did not expect that Yi Jinglei would be killed by Fei Ren in one punch without any resistance. Die! Ignoring Yi Jinglei's pleas for mercy, Fei Ren was determined to kill him. Another strange purple pattern appeared on his face, and at the same time, he kicked Yi Jinglei's chest. Bang! Yi Yunfeng spat out a mouthful of blood as his chest was heavily injured. At the same time, his body retreated like a kite with a broken string. His entire chest was caved in and his bones were broken. Blood flowed nonstop. With such a miserable appearance, even if he was not dead, he would be crippled. Without giving Yi Yunfeng a chance to beg for mercy, Fei Ren appeared in front of Yi Yunfeng in a flash. At the same time, he raised his hand and crushed Yi Yunfeng's skull. Red and white matter splattered all over the ground, completely killing him. As for the Yi family martial artists near the cliff, they did not escape from Fei Ren's killer either. They all fell to the ground and died. No one left alive. In front of the Withered Tree Cliff, blood flowed like a river. The Yi family team was wiped out. A bunch of trash. Other than Yi Aolong, the rest of the Yi family are only so-so. Pursing his lips, Fei Ren's face was cold. At this moment, besides the unconscious Feng Buhui and Xiao Nico, who was poisoned by the yin-yang lovemaking powder and whose beautiful face was slightly flushed red, only Chun Shi remained standing all alone like a lone ranger in the wind. Chapter 602. The geniuses from a Yi clan who had entered the Sky Monster's secret realm had all been killed by him. Fei Ren didn't waste any of their corpses. Swoosh! He raised his hand and summoned the immortal refining divine cauldron. In the next moment, a large amount of devouring power erupted from the divine cauldron. Then, it devoured all the remaining life essence of the surrounding Yi family warriors and turned it into pure origin energy. As strands of pure Yuan force flowed into his dantian, Fei Ren's Yuan force aura increased a little, but he didn't make a breakthrough. After all, Yi Yunfeng and Yi Jinglei's cultivation was only so-so. Even if he absorbed the remaining life essence of the two corpses, it would only increase his cultivation by a little. Unless he killed a genius like A.O. Chongkong on the Hidden Dragon Roll, he would have a chance to make a breakthrough and step into the 7th level of the martial spirit realm. Don't be greedy, don't be greedy. Although he didn't make another breakthrough, Fei Ren was already satisfied. Motherf asterisk Kerr. These Yi clan's bastards are really ruthless. They were so unscrupulous in order to lure me out. Fei Ren's face was grave as he leaped to Feng Buhui's side. Feng Buhui's injuries were very serious. His entire chest was caved in and stained with blood. To put it bluntly, Feng Buhui was already half a step into the gates of hell. Luckily, I'm here to save your life. Fei Rin took out a grade 7 elixir pill from his spiritual ring. In the next moment, he pried open Feng Buhui's mouth and sent the elixir pill into the unconscious Feng Buhui's mouth. At the same time, he circulated the Overlord's record of Western Shu and pressed his hand on Feng Buhui's chest. Using the Overlord's record of Western Shu to condense the Overlord's demonic rune not only increased a warrior's strength and was used to kill enemies, but it also had healing effects. It could quickly repair a warrior's damaged bones and meridians. However, this was a test of a warrior's mental energy attainment. Fortunately, Fei Rin's mental energy had already broken through to the 7th level of the profound martial realm, so it wasn't too difficult for him to treat Feng Buhui's injuries. Just as Fei Rin was about to save Feng Buhui, a soft and gentle voice of a woman sounded from the side. There was no lack of charm in it. Fei Rin, his vision gradually blurred. Xiao Nicole's beautiful face was flushed red as she struggled. At this moment, her red lips were emitting a fragrant scent. She seemed to have reached her limit. Her beautiful eyes were filled with desire. After all, Yi Jinglei had forced an entire bottle of yin-yang lovemaking powder down her throat. The effect of the yin-yang lovemaking powder was extremely powerful, and the reputation of this medicine was not unfounded. Right now, it was already very rare for Xiao and I to be able to hold on until now without completely losing her mind. Damn, so exciting. Fei Rin felt his nose turn red as he looked at the seductive Xiao Nicole in front of him. Her clothes were spread open, revealing her fair neck and thighs. In the past, Xiao Nico had always been cold and elegant in his eyes. Now, she was like a little kitten in heat. It was hard to imagine. The effect of the yin-yang lovemaking powder was truly insane, Fei Rin thought in his heart. Then, he circulated the yuan power in his dantian and forcefully suppressed the wisp of evil fire that was gradually surging up in his lower abdomen. No, I can't take advantage of her. Although Xiao Nicole was extremely beautiful and was a complete beauty, she was just a simple friend to him. How could he think of such dirty things? Moreover, a forceful melon would not be sweet. Miss Xiao, are you all right? After removing the restraints on Xiao Nicole, Fei Rin swallowed his saliva and tried his best to look at her body. Swoosh! However, Xiao Nicole pounced on him in the next moment. Then, she opened her red lips slightly and blocked his mouth. Feeling the softness on his mouth, Fei Rin's body trembled. This was his first kiss. However, he did not know that this was also Xiao Nicole's first kiss. She had only temporarily lost her mind due to the effects of the drug. The effect of the yin-yang lovemaking powder is actually so domineering. Just as Fei Rin was about to push her away, his expression changed slightly. At the same time, he felt a wave of heat and evil fire surging up from all over his body. The most ridiculous thing was that even if he used the records of the Tyrant of Western Shu, he could not suppress this evil fire. There was still a trace of the yin-yang lovemaking powder left in Xiao Nicole's mouth. With this kiss, the careless Fei Rin also fell for it. It's over. Something's going to happen. This was Fei Rin's last thought before he lost his mind. In front of the withered tree cliff, dragons and phoenixes danced together. After an unknown amount of time, the madness finally stopped. Fei Rin and Xiao Nicole also regained their senses. This can't be right. Looking at the mess around him, Fei Rin stretched out his hand to support his head. His expression was a little awkward. At the side, Xiao Nicole clenched her teeth. At this moment, her hands were tightly covering her chest. Her beautiful face was flushed red and filled with disbelief. It was as if she could not believe what just happened was real. What do we do? After being silent for a long time, Fei Rin finally could not help but ask in a nervous tone. A voice as soft as a mosquito sounded in his ear. Huff! Although he already knew the result, Fei Rin still let out a sigh with a helpless expression. Damn Fei Rin, what's with your expression? Seeing Fei Rin's expression as if he had been greatly wronged, Xiao Nicole frowned and said angrily. After all, this was her first time. Fei Rin had clearly taken advantage of her, but he made it seem as if he had taken advantage of her. Naturally, she could not tolerate this. Don't be angry, Miss Xiao, don't worry. I'll take responsibility for you in the future. This is a man's promise. After another dry cough, Fei Rin calmed down and hurriedly explained. Right now, since it had already happened, there was no turning back. Xiao Nicole had become his woman, so he naturally had to protect her and not let anyone harm her. I don't need you to take responsibility. You think too highly of yourself. Seeing Fei Rin make such a promise with a serious expression, Xiao Nicole's pretty face blushed slightly. She then lightly harumphed, tidied her clothes, and turned her head away. This idiot looks like we're really fated to be together. Although she did not seem to care about Fei Rin's promise, Xiao Nicole felt a sense of relief in her heart. At the same time, the corners of her mouth curled up into a smile. At this moment, the unconscious Feng Buhui slowly woke up. Are you all right? Seeing that Feng Buhui had finally woken up, Fei Rin took the opportunity to get away and went over to him. Although he and Xiao Nicole had slept together, it had happened too suddenly, and the two of them had not gotten used to the change. The atmosphere between them was quite awkward. Luckily, I didn't die. Brother Fei, I didn't think I would owe you my life again. Looking around, Feng Buhui shook his head and revealed a bitter smile. At this moment, the ground in front of the withered tree cliff was littered with the corpses of the Yi family warriors. Even Yi Yinfeng and Yi Jinglei were dead. He naturally understood that he had been saved by Fei Rin again. Chapter 603. You're welcome. If it wasn't for me, you wouldn't have been attacked by Yi Jinglei and the rest. These guys were targeting me from the start. Fei Rin patted Feng Buhui's shoulder calmly, indicating that he was fine. Now that Yi Jinglei and the rest were dead, the threat they faced was gone. Even though killing Yi Jinglei and the rest of the Yi clan meant that he had completely fallen out with the Yi clan, he was not afraid. The Yi clan was just a rank 5 clan. If he was given more time to grow, even a rank 5 clan would be trampled under his feet. With the divine cauldron and the saint rank cultivation technique, records of the overlord of Western Shu, Fei Rin was confident. Brother Fei, I haven't seen you for a long time. I didn't expect your strength to have grown to such a level. Looks like, Brother Fei, you've obtained a lot of opportunities in the heavenly monster secret realm. Looking at Fei Rin, Feng Buhui, who had just recovered from his injuries, coughed a few times. His face was filled with mixed feelings and endless emotions. Back in the Scorching Sun sect, Feng Buhui was just a small outer disciple with average strength and no reputation. Now that things had changed, Fei Rin's strength had grown beyond his imagination. It was even more exaggerated than Gao Yunshin's. His cultivation was only at level 2 martial spirit realm. On the other hand, Fei Rin's strength had skyrocketed to level 6 martial spirit realm. Lucky, what do you plan to do next? Fei Rin wasn't complacent about Feng Buhui's praise. He smiled faintly. Speaking of which, he hadn't obtained any opportunities in the past few days in the heavenly monster secret realm. His current cultivation had been raised by killing people and hunting demonic beasts, devouring their life essence. If one had to talk about fated chances, there was nothing else other than the record of the overlord of Western Shu, which he had comprehended on the Heavenly Mountains meditation platform. Nothing else. I'm just waiting for the heavenly monster secret realm to close and then leave. The closer I get to the depths of the heavenly monster secret realm, the stronger the demonic beasts and martial artists. With my current strength, I'm just courting death, let alone looking for opportunities. With a sigh, Feng Buhui's expression became somewhat carefree as he spoke in relief. After experiencing 2 life and death crises, he finally understood the gap between himself and Fei Rin and the others. Now, he would be satisfied as long as he could find some high-grade herbs and spirit fruits in the Sky Fei Mystic Realm. As for the improvement of his cultivation, it was all up to fate. Preserving his life was the most important thing. All right. Hearing this, Fei Run nodded his head. Since the other party had already made up his mind, he wouldn't ask any more questions. Not long after, Feng Buhue left the withered tree cliff. Xiao Nicole also glanced at Fei Run with a complicated expression before turning to leave. Miss Xiao, you're leaving just like that? I'm really not taking advantage of you this time. Fei Rin's figure flashed, and he appeared in front of Xiao Nicole. His expression was helpless. She seemed to still be angry at him for what had happened before. Did I say I was blaming you? Fortunately, Fei Run heaved a sigh of relief. Fortunately what? I didn't say I didn't blame you. Frowning, Xiao Nicole crossed her arms in front of her chest, and a hint of anger appeared on her face. Was he blaming her or not? Fei Run revealed a bitter smile. He really didn't understand women's thoughts, and he also didn't understand how quickly a woman could change her mind. After the Sky Fei Mystic Realm closes, I'll return to the Xiao family. If you don't come and propose marriage to my father, I won't forgive you. In the end, I'll wait for you at the Xiao family. After glaring at Fei Run once more, Xiao Nicole's tone suddenly softened. She then blushed slightly, pursed her lips, and quickly left the place. Watching Xiao Nicole's figure disappear into the distance, Fei Run shook his head and sighed. Women are truly incomprehensible creatures. At this point, no matter how stupid he was, he knew that Xiao Nicole had already accepted him in her heart. Although this was a bit of an accident, Xiao Nicole had become his woman, so Fei Run would naturally take it seriously. In front of the withered tree, cliff another 2 hours later, Fei Run was sitting cross-legged on the ground, cultivating. He didn't seem to be in a hurry to leave this place. In the previous battle, as well as the battle with the magical beasts outside northern Liang City, the 5 Overlord Mageweds stored in his body had all been used up. Now, in order to fight against stronger enemies, he naturally had to condense more Overlord Mageweds in case of emergencies. Preparing for a rainy day was the best strategy. After a while, Fei Run also condensed 7 Overlord Mageweds in his Dantian. As his cultivation base continued to increase, the number of Overlord Mageweds he could condense also increased. It increased from 5 to 7. Other than that, the Overlord Mageweds could be stacked infinitely, and it could even be added to martial arts, making the Overlord Magewed even more powerful. 7 Overlord Mageweds. Even if I meet Ao Chongkong from the Great Song Empire again, I won't end up in such a sorry state like before. Thinking so, Fei Run exhaled a mouthful of turbid air. Although his cultivation base was only at level 6 Martial Spirit Realm, he didn't have much of an advantage over the geniuses on the Hidden Dragon leaderboard. However, compared to when he was at the Heaven Mountains Enlightenment platform, his strength had increased by more than a few times. Just as Fei Run was about to leave the withered tree cliff, "Ha! Kid, I've finally found you." Suddenly, an arrogant laughter came from the sky. In the next moment, a tall young man in a python robe descended from the sky and landed steadily in front of the withered tree cliff. There was a trace of mockery and a sneer on his handsome face. Facing the young man in the python robe who suddenly appeared halfway, Fei Rin's heart skipped a beat as he looked at the other party. Ao Chongkong. When he saw the person's face clearly, Fei Rin's face suddenly turned solemn. The person who came was none other than the crown prince of the Great Song Empire, Ao Chongkong, who had a conflict with him previously and almost killed him. Speak of the devil, and he will appear. Secretly mobilizing the Dantian's origin energy, Fei Rin's face turned solemn. Compared to before, his strength had increased by a lot. However, Ao Chongkong in front of him had also improved rapidly. His origin energy cultivation base had already stepped into the half-step Martial King realm. His body was surrounded by an almost tangible murderous aura, which made people afraid to approach him. It seemed that he was only a step away from the real Martial King realm. Half-step Martial King. It seems that this guy has obtained a lot of opportunities before. Otherwise, he would have had the chance to kill me and Gao Yunshin the last time on Heaven Mountain. Noticing that Ao Chongkong's strength had increased by quite a bit, Fei Rin secretly praised himself in his heart. At the same time, he slightly understood why Ao Changkong had suddenly given up on chasing after him and Gao Yunshin and left in a hurry. It was definitely related to an opportunity. Kid, I'm deeply regretful that I couldn't kill you the last time. This time, you won't be able to escape. The dignity of the Great Song Empire cannot be violated. Ao Changkong glanced at Fei Run, whose face was full of vigilance, and the corners of his mouth rose, revealing a sinister smile. Last time on Heaven Mountain, in order to obtain the Martial King liquid to break through his cultivation base, he let the other party and Gao Yunshin go. However, this time, he wouldn't let Fei Ren go. He was going to eliminate Fei Ren and completely obliterate him. Chapter 604. Fei Ren's heart skipped a beat when he sensed the endless killing intent from Ao Changkong's body. A LV6 martial spirit realm cultivator against a half-step martial king. With such a huge gap between their realms, it was almost impossible to win. However, he could not lose this battle. So what if you're the crown prince of the Great Song Empire? Anyone who dares to stop me will die. With a roar in his heart, Fei Ren's figure shot out toward Ao Changkong. At the same time, he blasted out a purple Yuanli ribbon. Strike first and gain the upper hand. At the same time, he also wanted to test his opponent's strength. Good timing. Seeing Fei Ren moving toward him, Ao Changkong's face turned cold. He also stretched out his left hand and punched toward his opponent's chest. Boom! A strong wind whistled. Just as the fist mixed with majestic Yuan power was about to hit Fei Ren's chest, countless colored glass flames swept out and immediately blocked Ao Changkong's fist. The fierce and violent flames also forced Ao Changkong's figure to retreat at the same time. Bang! After forcing back Ao Changkong's attack, Fei Ren's attack also arrived in the next moment. The purple Yuan power swept heavily onto Ao Changkong's shoulder, and like a heavy hammer falling onto the ground, it let out a muffled bang. However, Ao Changkong's body was still as motionless as the 5 great mountains. He was still standing in the same place. This bastard is really not that easy to deal with. Seeing that his attack was ineffective against Ao Changkong, Fei Ren was not surprised. He stepped lightly on the ground and fell back again. Your strength is not bad, but it's far from enough. Before Fei Ren could come back to his senses, Ao Changkong's faint voice slowly sounded in his ears. Then, an afterimage streaked across the sky. Ao Changkong's fist attack came again. Not good. With a thump in his heart, Fei Ren immediately activated his Yuanli defense. At the same time, he released an Overlord demonic rune. A strange purple pattern appeared on his cheek. Ao Changkong's cultivation was at half-step Martial King realm. Even if it was just a casual punch, it would be difficult for ordinary warriors to resist. Although his Yuanli cultivation had broken through to LV6 Martial Spirit realm, it was obviously impossible for him to easily defeat Ao Changkong. Bang! Crack! Ao Changkong's fist and protective origin energy collided fiercely. In the next moment, the crisp sound of glass shattering rang out. The protective origin energy was instantly destroyed, and the remaining power of Ao Changkong's attack didn't diminish. It directly smashed towards Fei Ren's vital Dantian. The Dantian was one of martial artist's life gates. Once the Dantian was destroyed, one's cultivation and strength would be crippled. Its importance could be imagined. Boom! With a long roar, the power of the Overlord's Mageweth was completely unleashed. Fei Ren's left hand was also covered in a layer of purple Yuan power. Like a general's armor, it instantly met the opponent's fist. Then, he clenched his 5 fingers and swung them outwards, sending the opponent's figure flying. On the other side of the withered tree cliff, what a powerful force. Is this an Earth rank technique? No, a Heaven tier cultivation technique? After being sent flying by Fei Ren's attack, Ao Changkong retreated a few steps before he managed to stop himself. A trace of surprise appeared on his handsome face. He had used close to 80% of his strength in that punch, but the opponent could block it and even force him to retreat. It was enough to show that Fei Ren's cultivation technique was definitely not ordinary. The power of one Overlord's Mageweth barely blocked his attack. Ao Chongkong is actually so powerful, as expected of the crown prince of the great Song Empire. This is going to be troublesome. The purple lines on his cheeks gradually dissipated. Fei Ren exhaled heavily with a heavy heart. After consuming one Overlord's Mageweth, there were only 6 left in his Dantian. At present, whether it was the glass fire or ordinary martial arts, they couldn't do anything to the opponent. Purely in terms of Yuan power, he wasn't Ao Chongkong's opponent. The gap between their realms was huge. Only by relying on the power of the Overlord's Mageweth could he contend with the opponent. Fei Ren was very clear in his heart. If the power of the 6 Overlord's Mageweth in his body was completely exhausted, and he still couldn't finish off Ao Chongkong in front of him, then he would definitely die. There was no chance of winning. So what if it's this move? Collecting his thoughts, the corner of Ao Chongkong's mouth revealed a trace of a sneer. At the same time, he circulated his Yuan power to form a seal with his hands, and his eyes were ruthless. Although Fei Ren blocked his punch, the battle had just begun, and he hadn't used his full strength yet. Mixed element unity chi. Suppress. With a roar, Ao Chongkong blasted out another palm. An incomparably huge Yuan power pyramid appeared out of thin air. It was engraved with a large number of Tai Chi 8 trigrams. At the same time, it emitted a terrifying aura, as if it was going to suppress the entire world. This move again, looking at the incomparably huge Yuan power pyramid in the sky, Fei Ren's eyelids also twitched slightly. Previously on Sky Mountain, he was defeated by this move. The power of this martial art had already reached the Earth grade, far surpassing the 9th grade martial arts. Thunder Fire Talisman. Explode. The spirit ring on his finger flashed white. Just as the Yuan power pyramid was about to suppress him, Fei Ren took out 2 talismans from it. Then, he poured his Yuan power into them, releasing 2 waves of violent energy entwined with the power of thunder and fire. These 2 Thunder Fire talismans were previously given to him by Shao Nike as a thank you gift. Although the grade was only high, its power was not weak. It was enough to withstand a full blow from a level 8 martial spirit realm expert. At the moment, Fei Ren did not expect to rely on the power of these 2 Thunder Fire talismans to fight against Ao Chongkong. He just needed to buy some time. High-grade talismans? To save your life, you even took out such a thing? Seeing Fei Ren's actions, Ao Chongkong's eyes revealed a trace of disdain. Obviously, just 2 high-grade talismans were not enough to resist his Earth-grade martial art, mixed element unity chi. Boom! Rumble! The power of the Thunder Fire talisman and the Yuan power pyramid collided fiercely. In the end, it completely exploded, and a violent and terrifying shockwave spread out. For a moment, the entire withered tree cliff was in a mess. The ground trembled, and dust clouds were everywhere. After an unknown amount of time, the dust clouds finally dispersed, and Fei Ren's figure appeared again. However, he was in a sorry state. His robe was tattered, like pieces of rags hanging on his body. At the same time, there were several terrifying wounds on his chest and left leg. There were bloodstains, and it seemed that he had suffered serious injuries. Mother of Asterisker, this grandson has become stronger. Reaching out to wipe off the trace of blood from the corner of his mouth, Fei Ren's eyes were solemn. The warm-up is over. Next, it's time to send you on your way. Rakshasa bloodline. Looking at Fei Ren, who was in a sorry state, Ao Chongkong also reached out to tear off the robe on his upper body. Then, with a roar, his eyes suddenly turned red. 2 pairs of horns appeared on his head, and the veins on his body were exposed. At the same time, his aura changed greatly, as if he was an evil spirit from hell. Bloodline power? Seeing that Ao Chongkong's strength had increased greatly again, and at the same time, his appearance had changed greatly. Fei Ren's face was shocked, and a hint of surprise appeared in his eyes. The other party had used his bloodline power, and it seemed to be of a high grade, far superior to the ordinary bloodline power. That aura was comparable to the innate tyrant body. Chapter 605. Ao Changkong's bloodline was called Luo Sha, and it was of an extraordinary grade. Only the direct descendants of the Great Song Empire's royal family had a chance of awakening this bloodline. As the current crown prince of the Great Song Empire, Ao Changkong's talent and comprehension were top-notch. It was not surprising that he could awaken the Luo Sha bloodline. After all, his opponent was in the top 50 of the Hidden Dragon leaderboard. If he was defeated so easily, then the geniuses on the Hidden Dragon leaderboard would be trash. Swoosh! In the next moment, Ao Changkong, who had activated the Luo Sha bloodline, launched another attack. His entire body was like a wild beast as he charged toward Fei Ren. So fast, Fei Ren's heart skipped a beat. In just a breath's time, Ao Changkong was right in front of him. Even his afterimage could not be seen. After activating the Luo Sha bloodline, Ao Changkong's strength, reaction, and speed had increased by several times. He was infinitely close to a true martial king expert. Dying. Ao Changkong's 5 fingers bent into sharp claws as he swiped toward Fei Ren's neck. His face was grim. Although his claw was not a martial art, it was powerful enough to crush a martial artist below LV9 martial spirit realm, not to mention the most fragile part of the human body, the neck. Bang! In the face of life and death, Fei Ren also channeled origin power in his hands and protected his chest, blocking the claw. However, as a huge force came from his arm, he spat out a mouthful of blood and his face turned pale. The gap between the half-step martial king realm and LV6 martial spirit realm was too big. If he did not cultivate the sacred rank cultivation technique, record of the overlord of Western Shu, and his physique was far stronger than ordinary people, he would not have been able to block 3 of Ao Changkong's attacks. It's not over yet. Ao Changkong's cold voice rang in Fei Ren's ears again. Then, Fei Ren felt as if his arms had been hit by a heavy blow, as if he had been electrocuted. In the next moment, he was sent flying by a kick from Ao Changkong. His figure crashed into the dense forest, not far away in a sorry state. Fei Ren, how powerful is my Luo Sha bloodline? Feel despair. Another kick sent Fei Ren flying. Ao Changkong looked up to the sky and laughed, as if victory was within his grasp. His face was filled with a crazy and cruel smile. On the other side of the forest, Fei Ren struggled to get up from the ground. His expression was ugly. After several exchanges, he was always at a disadvantage, and he could not see the slightest hope of winning. The Rakshasa bloodline was a high-ranked bloodline that only the direct descendants of the Great Song Empire's royal family possessed. Although one's appearance would become somewhat ugly after using the power of the bloodline, it was still a terrifying increase in the overall strength of a cultivator. Before Ao Changkong unleashed his Rakshasa bloodline, Fei Ren could still barely contend with him. But now he couldn't. I can only use the Overlord Mageweth now. Holy *T, I'm going all out. Fei Ren took another look at Ao Changkong, who had an imposing aura, and hardened his heart. He instantly released all the power of the 6 Overlord Mageweths. This battle was a matter of life and death. He could not afford to be careless and underestimate the enemy. Therefore, he did not dare to hold back. He immediately used up all the Overlord Mageweth in his Dantian, hoping to finish off Ao Changkong in one move. 6 strange purple lines appeared one after another. 4 of them were on his cheeks, and 2 were wrapped around his arms. It was very magical. At the same time, with the appearance of the Overlord Mageweth, wisps of purple gas appeared out of thin air. They then circled around Fei Ren's body, as if purple gas came from the east. In front of the Withered Tree Cliff, this kid still has a trump card, seeing the purple gas circling around Fei Ren's body, and at the same time, his origin power aura had increased several times. Ao Changkong narrowed his eyes. He seemed to have expected this. Go! The power of the 6 Overlord Mageweth was raised to the limit, but Fei Ren did not make a move immediately. Instead, his right hand gently touched the spirit ring on his finger. Crack! A ray of light flashed, and in the next moment, a tall skeleton puppet appeared out of thin air. At this moment, its eyes were empty and emotionless. At the same time, both of its hands were holding sharp bone blades. It was the puppet Whitey, who had not appeared for a long time. After this period of cultivation, the puppet Whitey's strength had grown to level 4 martial spirit realm. However, as Fei Rin's opponents became stronger and stronger, the puppet Whitey's role became less and less. It was even a little weak. As long as I can find a flaw, I will have a chance to kill him. With a thought, under Fei Rin's command, the puppet Whitey's body shot out, waving its sharp bone blades towards Ao Changkong. You think you can stop me with these trashy puppets? What a joke. In the face of Little White's attack, Ao Changkong was first stunned, then he was instantly enraged. He originally thought that Fei Rin would do it himself, but he did not expect that the other party would only send a level 4 martial spirit realm puppet. He stood there and watched the show. This was undoubtedly a serious provocation, and even looked down on him. Therefore, Ao Changkong's killing intent towards Fei Rin grew. Get lost. His figure disappeared again, and in the next moment, Ao Changkong appeared behind the puppet Whitey. At the same time, he blasted out a palm in the air. A large amount of origin energy mixed with the palm force was shocking. Boom! Kacha! Kacha! The palm heavily imprinted on the puppet Whitey skeleton. In the next moment, a majestic origin energy exploded, completely destroying the puppet Whitey's skeleton and shattering it into pieces. Under Ao Changkong's full force palm, the puppet Whitey, which had followed Fei Rin for many years, was reduced to a pile of wreckage. Good chance. The moment Ao Changkong blasted the puppet Whitey, Fei Rin's figure finally moved, turning into an afterimage and disappearing. Overlord's sweep. His left leg bent slightly, then suddenly bounced back, sweeping towards Ao Changkong's lower body. Fei Rin's eyes flashed with killing intent. Not only did he use all his strength in this kick, but he also used the power of the 6 Overlord's demonic runes. The power was enough to kill a half-step martial king. What? Sensing the approaching aura of death, Ao Changkong's face also changed slightly. He never expected Fei Rin to be able to burst out such a powerful force in an instant. Bang! Rumble! He hurriedly circulated the origin energy in his body, and, at the same time, put his hands in front of him to protect himself. He intended to block Fei Rin's full force attack. However, Ao Changkong underestimated the power of his opponent's kick. In the next moment, he spat out a mouthful of blood, and at the same time, his whole body flew backward, smashing heavily on the ground. He looked quite miserable. At the same time, the Rakshasa bloodline power in his body gradually dissipated and finally returned to normal. It seemed that it had also been kicked away by Fei Rin. Bastard! You are the first person who can force me into such a situation. Ao Changkong struggled to get up and reached out to wipe the blood from the corner of his mouth. Ao Changkong's face was gloomy, and at the same time, his hands formed a seal again. In the next moment, a large amount of white flames was released, mixed with wisps of majestic Taoist aura, making it difficult for people to approach. Taoist power? Seeing a large amount of white flames suddenly emerge from Ao Changkong's body, Fei Rin's eyes narrowed. His opponent had comprehended the fire Taoist power, and his attainment was not low, at least at the complete stage. Chapter 606. Ao Changkong's Flame Dao Technique, which was at the perfection stage, coupled with Ao Changkong's half-step to Martial King realm cultivation, was enough to kill him with a casual blow. Fei Rin knew this very well. Even the power of the 6 Overlord demonic runes can't kill this guy. I can only use the divine refining cauldron. Fei Rin's face was grave as he faced Ao Changkong, who had used all his trump cards and even used the Flame Dao technique. After this fierce battle, he had little origin energy left in his body, and the 6 Overlord demonic runes that he had painstakingly condensed were all used up. Even so, he had not been able to kill Ao Changkong, and had only seriously injured him. It was enough to show that Ao Changkong, the crown prince of the Great Song Empire, had extraordinary strength. After all, the Great Song Empire's foundation was no weaker than a third-grade force, and was on par with the Clear Sea sect that Tang Shui had mentioned. Cough, cough, cough. Thinking of this, Fei Ren coughed up a few more mouthfuls of blood, and at the same time he staggered a little. Although his origin energy cultivation had reached LV6 martial spirit realm, the record of the Overlord of Western Shu was, after all, a divine-grade cultivation skill. Moreover, using the power of the 6 Overlord demonic runes at once put a heavy burden on his body. Currently, this was his limit. If he used the power of the Overlord demonic runes again, he would probably be the first to explode and die. After all, the core of the record of the Overlord of Western Shu was a physique cultivation skill, which was related to the strength of the martial artist. If the martial artist's strength and physique were not up to standard, he would not be able to support such a powerful force, let alone kill the enemy. It's over. As if he did not want to give Fei Ren a chance to catch his breath, the white flames around him gradually rose to the peak. In the next moment, Ao Changkong ignored the injuries on his body and raised his hand to strike at his opponent's heart meridian. It was mixed with the endless power of the Flame Dao technique. In Ao Changkong's opinion, even if Fei Ren could dodge his palm, he would not be able to dodge the remaining power of the Flame Dao technique. After all, up until now, Ao Changkong had also reached his limit, and his injuries were more serious than his. Fei Ren, no matter how powerful you are, you're still a mere 6th-level martial spirit realm cultivator. You can't defeat me. It was as if Ao Changkong could already see victory in front of him. His opponent would die, tragically under his palm. A hint of madness and laughter appeared on his pale face. Bang! Ao Changkong's palm heavily imprinted on Fei Ren's chest, but did not affect his heart meridian. Fei Ren actually moved his body, barely avoiding a vital point. In the next moment, a large amount of white flames swept out, engulfing Fei Ren's figure. It was as if he had turned into a burning man. Unless one encountered a Water Dao art at the perfection realm, or encountered a Water Dao art at the same cultivation level, or if the difference in strength between the two sides was too great, otherwise, it was very difficult to resist. If it was light, one would be injured by the might of the Dao art of flames and be reduced to a cripple. If it was heavy, one would die on the spot without even leaving behind a corpse. This is the result of offending this prince. After retreating and seeing Fei Ren's figure being engulfed by the white flames, Ao Changkong's mouth also hung a sneer. Although he was already exhausted in this battle and had used all his trump cards in order to deal with Fei Ren, the outcome was still as he wished. Fei Ren was already dead without a doubt. It's not over yet. Devouring power. Just as Ao Changkong heaved a sigh of relief in his heart, a deep and cold voice sounded out once again, accompanied by a majestic, devouring power. The person who came was none other than Fei Ren. What? This bastard is not dead yet. The sudden change caused Ao Changkong's expression to be equally shocked. He never expected that Fei Ren would not be completely killed after taking a direct hit from his palm and the power of the Perfection Realm Flame Dao art. Bang! Before Ao Changkong could react, Fei Ren's hands fiercely landed on the other party's shoulders. In an instant, a large amount of devouring power gushed out from the divine, immortal refining cauldron deep within his dantian. Then, it broke through Ao Changkong's protective origin power and surged into his extraordinary 8 meridians and dantian. The divine, immortal refining cauldron was his final trump card. Unless it was absolutely necessary, Fei Ren would not use it easily. Now, in order to get rid of Ao Changkong, this great threat, he could only use the divine, immortal refining cauldron's devouring power. How is this possible? Such a powerful devouring power. What kind of spiritual treasure is this? when he sensed that the little origin power and even life force in his body had been forcibly extracted by Fei Run and then devoured. Ao Changkong's expression was filled with shock. His eyes were filled with disbelief. As the crown prince of the great Song Empire, his horizons were broad. He knew very well that even a venerable grade spiritual treasure could not possess such a powerful force, let alone directly extracting a martial artist's life force. Could it be that he had a divine grade spiritual treasure? Just as this horrifying thought appeared in his mind, in the next moment, Ao Changkong's chest was punched by Fei Ren again. His body flew backward, and he kept vomiting blood. All of his origin power and a part of his life force had been extracted by Fei Ren's devouring power. Ao Changkong could be said to be very aggrieved. He had the cultivation of a half-step to martial king, but he could not use any of his strength. He was like a fish on a chopping board, waiting to be slaughtered. Die! After sending Ao Changkong flying with a punch, Fei Ren used the origin power he had absorbed to appear in front of his opponent in a flash. Once again, he threw out a punch with all his strength and completely finished off his opponent. Cut the weeds and eliminate the roots, not leaving behind any trouble. His opponent was the crown prince of the Great Song Empire. If such a powerful enemy escaped, Fei Ren would definitely be hunted down endlessly in the future. Ao Changkong's chest was pierced, and his heart meridians and bones were all shattered. Ao Changkong spat out another mouthful of blood, then his head tilted to the side, and he was completely dead. After all, he was only a half-step to Martial King. If Ao Changkong was a real Martial King expert, even if his heart meridians were shattered, as long as his Dantian and nascent soul were still there was still a slight chance of saving him. It's finally over. After killing Ao Changkong, Fei Ren's body went limp, and he sat down on the ground, panting heavily. It seemed that he did not even have the strength to move. His blood-stained face finally relaxed. At the same time, somewhere in the heavenly demon's secret realm, a black-robed elder stood quietly, and beside him were several martial spirit realm experts. Everyone looked at the black-robed elder with eyes full of respect, as if he had a high status in the team. Why hasn't His Highness the Crown Prince returned after leaving for so long? The black-robed elder had a puzzled look on his face as a green soul lamp lay quietly in his right palm. Crack! The soul lamp in his hand suddenly shattered, and in the next moment, the black-robed elder's expression changed greatly, and his eyes were filled with deep shock. Something had happened. This green soul lamp was Ao Changkong's natal soul lamp, and it was closely related to him. Now that the green soul lamp had suddenly shattered, there was only one possibility, and that was that Ao Changkong was in trouble, and it was very likely that he was dead. No matter who you are, how dare you kill the crown prince of the Great Song Empire? I will skin you, pull out your tendons, and tear you into pieces. The black-robed old man roared at the sky. In the next moment, his eyes were spitting fire. Endless killing intent appeared on his wrinkled face. A powerful aura of a martial king spread out. It was extremely oppressive. However, at this time, Fei Ren did not know that after killing Ao Changkong, he had been targeted by a martial king expert of the Great Song Empire and was in danger. Chapter 607. In front of the withered wood cliff after resting for an hour, the Yuan power in Fei Ren's Dantian finally recovered a little. Even though the injuries on his body had yet to heal, there was still a trace of strength left. It was not to the extent that he could not even walk. This guy is the crown prince of the Great Song Empire. Now that I have killed him, I must have an irreconcilable hatred with the Great Song Empire. I have to leave this place quickly. Looking at Ao Changkong's corpse beside him, Fei Ren exhaled heavily and slowly stood up. Buzz! A small, ancient cauldron appeared in his palm. In the next moment, Fei Ren threw the small cauldron into the air. In an instant, the small cauldron suddenly became several times bigger. At the same time, it sucked in all of Ao Changkong's corpse on the ground. using the power of the refining Immortal Cauldron to destroy the corpse. He did not want to leave any traces that could easily lead to the Great Song Empire's pursuit. In addition, the dead Ao Chankong was also a half-step to Martial King expert. If he absorbed and refined his corpse, Fei Rin's own cultivation would also increase a lot. Therefore, he could not waste it. Before leaving this place, Fei Rin still had to devour and refine Ao Chankong's corpse. Bang! Using both of his hands, he slammed his palm on the refining Immortal Cauldron. The inscriptions on the cauldron flickered. In the next moment, the entire cauldron trembled. At the same time, wisps of green smoke were emitted. It seemed that Ao Chankong's corpse in the cauldron had begun to be refined. Another incense stick's time passed. As wisps of pure energy flowed into his dantian, Fei Rin's aura rose again and again. Finally, he broke through and stepped into LV7 Martial Spirit Realm. A half-step to Martial King corpse. After devouring and refining, it did not disappoint my expectations. Retrieving the refining Immortal Cauldron in the air, Fei Rin was relieved. Although his injuries could not be healed in a short period of time, his dantian was full again because of the breakthrough in his cultivation. Even if he were to encounter any danger, he would not be in a situation where he could not resist. Although he was not at his peak, there was no problem for him to exert 80% of his strength. Phew! Who? Just as Fei Rin was about to leave, a violent gust of wind blew in all directions. It was as if the end of the world had arrived. At the same time, the pressure of a Martial King realm expert arose spontaneously and instantly enveloped the entire withered tree cliff, completely suppressing Fei Rin who was within it. Fei Rin couldn't help but feel apprehensive, and even his footsteps seemed to have become slightly heavier. Not good. Fei Rin's expression changed as well. Not only was the person's aura powerful, indicating that he had reached the Martial Emperor realm, but he also seemed to be charging straight at him. Little bastard, I've finally found you. In the sky, a cold and emotionless old voice faintly sounded. In the next moment, a wild wind whistled as a tall old man in a black robe appeared in front of Fei Rin. His old face was filled with wrinkles and murderous intent was revealed. It was as though he could not wait to tear the other party into pieces. The tall old man's name was Gu Tuesday. He was good at wind attribute martial arts and was titled Gale King. Not only was he a powerful LV3 Martial King realm expert, but he was also one of the foreign officials of the Great Song Empire. He was responsible for the safety of the Crown Prince, Ao Chankong, in the Heavenly Demon Mystery Land. However, Gutu had never expected that Ao Chankong would be killed by a nobody like Fei Rin. After swallowing a drop of Martial King liquid, Ao Chankong's origin power cultivation had skyrocketed from LV9 Martial Spirit Realm to half-step to Martial King Realm. He was only one step away from the Martial King Realm, and his strength was no weaker than a LV1 Martial King Realm expert. In addition, Gutu was also a genius ranked in the top 50 on the Hidden Dragon list. He had mastered many high-level martial arts and secret skills. Today, this old man will avenge the Crown Prince. Thinking of this, the murderous intent on Gutu's face intensified, and he could not remain calm. Originally, he had been ordered by the Emperor of the Great Song Empire to protect the Crown Prince, Ao Chankong, in the Heavenly Demon Mystery Land. Now that Ao Chankong had died, as a foreign official of the Great Song Empire, Gutu naturally could not absolve himself from blame. Therefore, unless he personally chopped off Fei Rin's head and brought it back for punishment, Gutu himself could not bear the anger of the Great Song Empire's imperial family. As expected, this old man is also from the Great Song Empire. LV3 Martial King Realm. This is troublesome. Looking at Gutu, who was not far away, Fei Rin clenched his fists under his sleeves, and there was a trace of bitterness on his face. He had barely escaped death and used all his strength and trump cards to kill Ao Chankong, who was at half-step to Martial King Realm. However, before he could heave a sigh of relief, Gutu, who was at LV3 Martial King Realm, appeared. He was unlucky enough to have such a fate. What should I do? Bewildered, Fei Rin's eyes were filled with worry. He was definitely no match for Gu in a head-on fight. If he tried to escape, the chances of him succeeding were not high. Now, not only was he injured, but he also had to divert a portion of his yuan power to resist the king's aura. It was almost certain that he would die. Die. With a violent roar, Gu raised his hand and blasted out a palm. In an instant, a large amount of yuan power swept out and turned into a huge green wind blade. It immediately slashed towards Fei Rin, who was on the ground below. Even if Fei Rin was not injured, he would not be able to withstand the full force attack of LV3 Martial King Realm Expert, even if he was in his peak condition. Damn it! Facing Gu violent attack, Fei Rin's expression changed as well. He immediately circulated the protective yuan power around him to the maximum. At the same time, he summoned the Immortal Refining Cauldron with the intention of blocking the attack. The protective yuan power was shattered by the green wind blade. Even the Immortal Refining Cauldron was sent flying. It then slashed viciously onto Fei Rin's body. In the next moment, Fei Rin spat out a mouthful of blood. His aura dropped drastically as his body fell into the dense forest behind him. Am I going to die here? I can't accept this. Fei Rin's eyes were filled with indignation and anger. In the next moment, something strange happened. Buzz! The Immortal Refining Cauldron, which was sent flying by the green wind blade, vibrated as if it had heard its master's call. This is the power of the Immortal Refining Cauldron. Fei Rin's face was filled with shock. He watched as the Immortal Refining Cauldron tore through space. Then, countless streams of devouring power were unleashed. Not only did it force Gu back, but it also sucked him into the new spatial crack. What's going on? Fei Rin was severely injured, and the last trace of consciousness in his mind gradually dissipated. In the next moment, he fainted due to excessive blood loss. Then, the cracks in space closed up again and returned to normal, as if nothing had happened. There was dead silence in front of the withered tree cliff. He ran away. At this moment, Gutu's face was stunned, and then it suddenly became extremely ugly. He had never imagined that Fei Rin, who was in a situation where he was sure to die, would still be able to escape. Moreover, the small ancient cauldron in Fei Rin's hand was actually capable of tearing space apart. It automatically protected its master. Now, Fei Rin had gone through the space transmission. No one knew where he was and could not find him. Chapter 608. Be asterisk starred. Gutu's angry roar resounded in front of the withered tree cliff again. Although he had found the real culprit who killed Ao Chongkong, he could only watch helplessly as the culprit escaped. One could only imagine the unwillingness and anger in his heart. This time, he had been too careless. Northern continent swoosh. A void crack suddenly tore open in the sky above, emitting a mysterious aura. In the next moment, a wretched figure fell from it and crashed into a valley below, stirring up a cloud of dust. At this moment, a small and simple cauldron was faintly visible, lying silently before the chest of the figure. It was attracted to the spatial rift in the sky, and it emanated strands of devouring energy that gradually vanished after a few breaths of time. A faint light flickered, and in the next moment, the Immortal Refining Cauldron returned to its original state. At the same time, it slowly sank into Fei Rin's chest. Where am I? Slowly opening his eyes, Fei Rin felt a splitting headache. He then subconsciously touched his chest. Just a moment ago, he seemed to have seen the Immortal Refining Cauldron enter his body again. Not only that, but even the terrible injuries on his body seemed to have recovered a little. The wounds gradually stopped bleeding and healed, leaving behind scars. The Immortal Refining Cauldron saved me. Without this thing, I might have died in the hands of the Gale King. Gu. After regaining consciousness, Fei Rin also sorted out his thoughts. In the next moment, he slowly sat up with a look of fear on his face. Now, he was certain that he had escaped Gutu's pursuit. Previously, in the heavenly demon secret realm, At the last moment of life and death, the immortal refining cauldron seemed to have heard his call and actually took the initiative to protect its master. At the same time, it tore open a void crack to teleport him away. As for where he was now, Faerun did not know for the time being. He was seriously injured and had lost consciousness. It was good enough that he was still alive. However, he was sure that he had already left the heavenly demon secret realm. After all, Gale King Gutu was an LV3 Martial King realm expert. His origin power was much more sensitive than Faerun's. If Faerun was still in the heavenly beast mystery realm, it would be difficult for him to escape from Gale King Gutu's pursuit no matter how well he hid. 10th level of the martial spirit realm. My origin power cultivation has made another breakthrough. Meanwhile, Faerun suddenly noticed that the origin energy in his Dantian had become much stronger, and it was a few times more formidable than when he fought Gu Tuesday. Is this a blessing in disguise? Although he had almost died at Gu Tu's hands, it was a blessing in disguise. Gu Tu had failed to kill him back then, and his Yuan power cultivation had achieved another breakthrough. Furthermore, he had broken through 3 levels in a row and directly reached the 10th level of the martial spirit realm. Speaking of which, Faerun still had to thank Gu Tu for that palm strike. Not only did it not take his life, it even gave him a fortuitous encounter. Thinking of this, he sat down cross-legged and took out a few grade 7 elixir pills from his spiritual ring and swallowed them. As he healed the injuries on his body, he began to condense the Overlord's Mageweth with a calm expression. Now that his origin power cultivation had broken through to the 10th level of the martial spirit realm, it meant that Faerun could condense more Overlord's Mageweth. 2 hours later, Faerun's injuries were almost fully healed, and at the same time, he had successfully condensed 15 Overlord's Mageweth in his Dantian. The 15 Overlord's Mageweth was more than double the previous 7 Overlord's Mageweth, and its power was extraordinary. Now, with his origin power cultivation and the power of the 15 Overlord's Mageweth, Faerun was confident that he could contend with Gale King Gutu the next time he met him. Even if he was defeated in the end, he would still have the power to fight back. Pata! Stepping forward, his left hand accidentally touched the cliff of the valley beside him. In the next moment, a ray of white light appeared in Faerun's palm and disappeared in an instant. What's this? Faerun's face was filled with astonishment as he looked at the mountain wall that his hand had touched. At this moment, the mountain wall was actually covered with a layer of pure white coating that was like a thin film. It contained a weak power of Tao art. Then, a strand of tender shoots slowly grew out of the mountain wall. The shoots were dripping with dew, as if they were made by nature and were born out of nothing. The aura of a Tao art. Could it be that I survived this disaster and obtained a trace of Tao art power? Slowly retracting his left hand, Faerun was puzzled. Swoosh! As if he wanted to verify his judgment, Faerun stretched out his right hand and touched the tree buds on the mountain wall. Pop! Like ripples in water, the moment Faerun's right hand touched the tree bud, a weak strand of Tao law power came out of his palm. In the next moment, the tree bud withered at an extremely shocking speed, then withered and metabolized, turning into a wisp of nothingness, creating something out of nothing, turning yin into yang, and the transformation of the two was called yin and yang. It really is the power of the yin-yang Tao art. Focusing his eyes, Faerun's expression turned serious, as if he had understood the ins and outs of everything. After experiencing a near-death situation, not only did he achieve a breakthrough in his cultivation base, but he also comprehended the rare yin-yang Tao art. The power of Tao art was the evolution and upgrade of the power of concept. As for the yin-yang Tao art, it was even rarer and belonged to a very special Tao art power. Its power and effect were far superior to ordinary Tao arts. Even Gao Yunshin's sword Tao art and Ao Changkong's flame Tao art could not compare to it. Although Faerun was only at the initial stage of the yin-yang Tao art and had not mastered it to perfection, its power and effect could be seen just now. It was creating something out of nothing and reversing yin and yang. To put it simply, if the opponent's attack came, Faerun could not only use the yin-yang Dao art to dissolve the attack, but he could also reflect the opponent's attack. It was like the great shift of heaven and earth, allowing him to be in an advantageous position. Other than that, the most powerful part of the yin-yang Dao art was creating something out of nothing. As long as the martial artist was strong enough, not only could he use the power of Dao art to revive the dead, he could even create a life form with intelligence. In the valley, while familiarizing himself with a new yin-yang Dao art power, Faerun explored the terrain and surroundings. So this is the northern continent. The divine immortal Cauldron sent me to the northern continent. Is this a coincidence? Back in the ancestral tomb, Guansheng seemed to have said that this is the origin of the dragon god sect. After another incense stick's worth of time, Faerun finally familiarized himself with his location. Now, he had left the eastern continent and was now in the northern continent. Unlike the eastern continent, the number of human martial artists in the northern continent did not occupy a dominant position. There were many foreign races and demonic beasts in the territory. It could be considered a gathering of various civilizations and 100 schools of thought. Other than that, the northern continent was also the origin of the number one sect in the Black Star continent, the Dragon God sect. The sect master of the Dragon God sect, known as the Heavenly King of the 8 tribes of heavenly dragons, was from the northern continent. Therefore, the northern continent attracted many martial artists, rogue cultivators, and young geniuses who yearned for the glory of the Dragon God sect in the past. A large number of martial artists and young geniuses followed here. Chapter 609. The northern continent is the birthplace of the dragon sect. I should be able to find out some secrets about the dragon sect from here, as well as the whereabouts of my parents, Faerun thought to himself as he clenched his fists. Back in the Dacha dynasty, he had learned from the remnant soul of Zhang Qingyang that he was a descendant of a high-ranking figure in the dragon sect. However, the other party had some reservations about the deeds of his birth parents and did not say anything. Now, he only knew that his birth parents had a grudge with some forces on the Xuanqing continent. Back then, they had been hunted down by many forces on the Xuanqing continent. As for whether they were alive or dead, Faerun did not know. These were the truths that he wanted to uncover one by one. He would make those people pay for what they had done to his parents one by one. Swoosh! Faerun spat out another mouthful of turbid air. In the next moment, he also leaped into the air and left the valley. In the sky, before I inquire about the Heavenly Dragon sect, I need to find a place to stay. Faerun took out a simple and crude map from his spirit ring and looked at it carefully. Taishan City. This is it. Faerun made up his mind and then put away the map. Taishan City was the closest city to the valley below him. It belonged to the Sword Sect, and this time he planned to go to Taishan City. As for the Sword Sect, it was the most powerful third-grade force in the vicinity. It occupied 18 sizable cities, known as the 18 cities of the Sword Sect. Not only were there many masters, but there were also many disciples. It was rumored that the current leader of the Sword Sect was also a mystique venerable with unparalleled strength. Taishan City was one of the 18 cities of the Sword Sect. The forces in the city were intricate. In addition to the City Lord's office, which occupied the dominant position, there were 2 fourth-grade clans, the Li family and the Wu family. Although the Li family and the Wu family were both fourth-grade clans, the 2 families had always been at odds with each other, fighting both openly and covertly. They could be considered as old enemies. After a while, Faerun arrived at Taishan City. However, he did not stop at the city gate. Instead, he flew straight into the city. At the same time, he attracted the attention of some martial artists and rogue cultivators. He's already at level 10 martial spirit realm at such a young age. He's another genius. Could it be that Li, that brat, has returned? I don't think so. This person looks very unfamiliar. He's not a genius from the Wu clan or the Li clan. At the same time, he's not from the City Lord's mansion either. That's true. Ignoring the discussions of the crowd, Fei directly found an inn to stay in after entering the city. At the same time, he prepared to inquire about the Heavenly Dragon sect. Hey, have you heard? The Li family seems to be recruiting alchemists. In the lobby on the first floor of the inn, a few martial warriors were whispering to each other. One of them was beaming with joy. Really, it's absolutely true. The Li clan has even announced that every alchemist who joins the Li clan will enjoy the treatment of a top-notch guest elder. Apart from that, they are free to come and go. Even the patriarch has no right to control them. As long as they refine a batch of medicinal pills for the Li clan regularly, they will receive a large amount of benefits. The martial warrior who spoke first said again, and his companion beside him also showed a surprised expression. Wow, this is too good. The Li clan is a 4th-rank clan. If you can become a guest elder of the Li clan, you will be rich. Next to him, a man with a buzz cut smacked his lips and sighed. Unfortunately, it will be difficult to become a guest elder of the Li clan. His cultivation was at the 6th level of the martial spirit realm, which was not too weak. However, his spiritual strength was very low, not even at the 3rd level of the profound martial realm. Therefore, the man with a buzz cut knew his own limitations and did not compete for the position of a guest elder of the Li clan. Even if he went, it would be a slap in the face in vain. In the territory of Taishan City, the Li clan was one of the 3 major forces after all. They had the foundation of a 4th-rank clan, second only to the City Lord's mansion, which belonged to the Sword sect. To become a guest elder of the Li clan, one had to be at least a 7th-rank alchemist or above. The Li clan is recruiting alchemists. I can give it a try. On the other side, Fei Ren's ears twitched slightly as he heard the conversation of the crowd. He also reached out and touched his chin. Just now, he did not have any plans, but now it was different. Right now, he had just arrived in the unfamiliar northern continent and was at a stage where he was unfamiliar with the people and the place. It was time-consuming and laborious for him to inquire about the dragon sect by himself, so joining a force was undoubtedly the best choice. After all, the Li clan was one of the famous 4th-rank clans in Taishan City, so their intelligence network and ability must be extraordinary. If he borrowed the power of the Li clan, he could easily obtain information about the former dragon sect. As soon as he made up his mind, Fei Ren turned and left the inn in the next moment, running in the direction of the Li clan in the city. In front of the gate of the Li clan's mansion, 2 young guards stood on the side, their faces solemn and their auras awe-inspiring. As one of the guards of the Li clan, the cultivation of the 2 young guards at the gate was not weak. They had both reached the martial spirit realm. One of them was at the 7th level of the martial spirit realm, while the other was slightly weaker. His cultivation of Yuan Li seemed to have just broken through to the 6th level of the martial spirit realm. After a while, Fei Ren came to the front of the Li clan's mansion. "Stop, who are you?" Seeing Fei Ren not far away coming to the gate of the Li clan's mansion, one of the guards stepped forward and stopped him. "I'm just a rogue cultivator. I heard that your mansion is hiring an alchemist, so I'm here." Seeing that the guard had stopped him, Fei Ren only grinned. He wasn't surprised at all. After all, it was his first time in the northern continent, so he naturally did not know much about the various forces in Taishan City. As for the people who knew him, there were even fewer. Applying for an alchemist? Just you? Hearing this, the guard and his companion were stunned for a moment, seeming to be very surprised. After all, Fei Ren in front of them was very young, looking only about 21 years old. How could such a young person be an alchemist? The 2 of them had thousands of doubts in their hearts. And taking a step back, even if Fei Ren was really an alchemist, his alchemy skills would not be that strong. After all, the other party was too young, and the Li clan was not recruiting ordinary alchemists this time. The requirements were very strict, and they would not consider anyone below the 7th level. "Why, brothers, don't I look like an alchemist?" Faced with the doubts of the 2 Li clan guards, Fei Ren did not deliberately refute them. He just shrugged and smiled playfully. Long before he went to Taishan City, and during his experience in the Heavenly Demon Secret Territory, he had never neglected the cultivation of alchemy and spiritual power. Both of them were advancing side by side with his martial arts cultivation, and they were not lagging behind by too much. Now, his spiritual power had already stepped into the 8th level of the profound martial realm. At the same time, his alchemy skills had also improved by leaps and bounds, reaching the level of an 8th level alchemist. Therefore, this time, when he went to the Li clan to apply for an alchemist position, Fei Ren was full of confidence. Holy sh*t. I'm an 8th level alchemist, and I'm not qualified to join the Li clan as a guest? Are you kidding me? After all, although the Li clan was a 4th level clan in Taishan City and had a strong foundation, they were not strong enough to reject an 8th level alchemist. Chapter 610. In the face of Fei Ren's self-recommendation, the two Li family guards looked at each other again, as if they had reached some kind of tacit agreement. Kid, at your age, you are at most a 4th grade alchemist, right? The alchemists recruited by the Li family are at least 7th grade and above. I advise you to leave as soon as possible. One of the Li family guards said in an indifferent tone. That's right. If you continue to be a hindrance here, don't blame us for being impolite. The other Li family guard said disdainfully, as if he did not think that the other party had such a level of alchemy. It seems that I have to show my hand. In the face of the contempt of the two Li family guards, Fei Ren's lips curled up. If he did not show some real skills now, these Li family people would really think that he was bragging. What's going on? Just as Fei Ren was about to prove his alchemy skills, a man's faint voice came from not far away. In the next moment, a middle-aged man in a white robe walked over. His face was firm and dignified, and he had the temperament of a superior. At the same time, the aura of Yuan Li around him was very strong, which made people's hearts palpitate. Master, seeing the middle-aged man in a white robe walk over, the two Li family guards at the door immediately changed their expressions, and then they cupped their fists and bowed their heads. Li Zinan, the current master of the Li family in Taishan City, was also one of the rare martial king realm experts. His cultivation was as high as LV8 martial king realm, and his strength was unfathomable. So he is the master of the Li family, LV8 martial king realm. He is indeed powerful. At this moment, seeing Li Zinan's appearance, Fei Ren also raised his eyes and looked over, secretly praising himself. Ha! My talent scout is here. This time, he originally wanted to join the Li family and become a distinguished guest. Now, he was worried about how to enter the Li family and was stopped by the two Li family guards at the door, and Li Zinan's sudden appearance undoubtedly gave him a chance to recommend himself. Master, this person says that he is an alchemist and wants to apply for the position of guest. One of the Li family guards cupped his fists again and said respectfully to Li Zinan, not daring to show the slightest disrespect in his tone. Although, in his opinion, Fei Ren's actions were undoubtedly looking for trouble. After all, an alchemist who was able to become a guest elder of the Li family had to at least be a grade 7 alchemist or a martial king expert. Little brother, may I ask if what you said is true? Li Zinan's gaze also fell on Fei Ren. Surprise flashed across his eyes as he asked. Although the two Li family guards at the door were idiots who couldn't see through Fei Ren's strength, he was different. As the head of the Li family, Li Zinan could tell at a glance that Fei Ren's strength was extraordinary. At such a young age, he had reached the 10th tier of the martial spirit realm. Even among the 3 major forces of Taishan City, he was a first-class genius. Other than that, he also claimed to be an alchemist. If what Fei Ren said was true, then he was undoubtedly a genius who cultivated both martial arts and alchemy. Of course. Nodding, Fei Ren immediately cupped his fists at Li Zinan in front of him and said, Senior Li, with my alchemy skills, I am definitely qualified to be a guest elder of your family. Please rest assured. By the way, these are the pills I just refined. The quality is average. Please excuse me. With a flick of his finger, Fei Ren took out a white pill bottle from his spirit ring and threw it at Li Zinan. Grade 7 pills? Raising his hand to catch the white pill bottle, Li Zinan was surprised. Inside the medicine bottle, there were several small pills that were completely green in color. They had a translucent luster, and it could be seen that they were of high quality. They had already reached the level of 7th grade pills. Even if the medicine bottle was not deliberately opened, there were wisps of faint pill fragrance wafting out from within, penetrating into one's heart. This kid, how could... At this moment, facing such a generous Fei Run, the two Li family guards looked at each other in dismay, their faces filled with disbelief. After all, he threw out a few grade 7 pills right off the bat. It was enough to see how wealthy he was. If he was not an alchemist, he would not have the financial resources to carry such a large amount of high-quality pills. Senior Li, how about these pills? If the quality is not good, I still have some good stuff here. Grinning, seeing that Li Zinan did not speak, Fei Run said again. These grade 7 pills were the vitality-replenishing pills that he usually refined. After swallowing them, they could quickly recover lost origin power and energy, thus reaching peak condition. Damn! At this moment, hearing these words, the two Li family guards were so shocked that their jaws dropped. They looked at Fei Ran with eyes full of shock. This was too ridiculous. Could it be that this kid was really a grade 7 alchemist? He was only in his early 20s, right? Monster. Little brother, please follow me. Keeping the white pill bottle in his hand, Li Zinan nodded slightly. Looking at Fei Run with eyes full of admiration, he then turned and stepped into the mansion. Seeing this scene, Fei Ran also followed, leaving behind the two Li family guards, whose faces were filled with shock in a daze. Li Mansion, in a spacious courtyard, rockery stood in great numbers and streams crisscrossed. Little brother, although these pills are indeed authentic grade 7 pills, I still want to see your alchemy skills with my own eyes. I hope you don't mind. Turning his head to look at Fei Run beside him, Li Zinan smiled faintly. No worries. Hearing Li Zinan's explanation, Fei Run grinned, as if he had expected it. After a while, Fei Run also followed Li Zinan to a luxurious hall. It seemed to be the Li family's meeting hall. Is Elder Song here? Looking at a servant beside him, Li Zinan said faintly, Master, Elder Song will be here soon. Hearing Li Zinan's question, the servant hurriedly knelt on the ground and said respectfully, not daring to be negligent. Elder Song was one of the guests of the Li family, and, at the same time, the only 7th grade alchemist. His status was high and respected, and his reputation in the Li family was not inferior to the patriarch, Li Zinan. Even when facing Elder Song, Li Zinan would still show due respect. Elder Song is also an alchemist. When the time comes, perhaps you can exchange pointers in alchemy. Turning his head to look at Fei Run behind him, Li Zinan opened his mouth and said in the next moment, an inexplicable smile on his face. To be honest, he was also very much looking forward to seeing what level Fei Run, who was only in his early 20s, had achieved in alchemy. Had he really reached the level of a grade 7 alchemist? Family head, you were looking for me? At this moment, an old voice slowly came from the outside. In the next moment, a white-haired old man wearing a black robe slowly stepped into the hall. His face was full of wrinkles, like a shriveled chrysanthemum. No change in expression could be seen. It seemed to be the Elder Song that the other party had mentioned, the only grade 7 alchemist in the Li family. Chapter 611. Elder Song, you're finally here. Li Zinan smiled faintly. This time, he wanted to use Elder Song to test Fei Ran's alchemy skills. Master, this is... At the same time, Elder Song also noticed Fei Run by the side, and he was puzzled. His aura was extraordinary. He had already reached the 10th level of the martial spirit realm. Plus, he was young, so he was obviously a genius. However, Fei Ran's face was very unfamiliar. He wasn't from the 3 major forces of Taishan City. This made Elder Song feel a little strange. This little brother is called Fei Run. Not only is he successful in cultivation, but his alchemy skills are also superb. He's planning to apply for the position of our Li family's guest elder. Before Elder Song could think any further, Li Zinan said with a smile. At the same time, he intentionally or unintentionally glanced at Fei Run, as if he was waiting for a reaction. However, to Li Zinan's surprise, Fei Run was extremely calm at this moment. He only nodded his head, looking as if he was unfazed by honor or disgrace. This little boy is also an alchemist? Master, you're not joking with me, are you? Hearing this, Elder Song frowned, and a trace of hostility appeared on his old face. Elder Song, this is why I called you here. Seeing the change in Elder Song's expression, Li Zinan probed again. As the master of the Li family, he knew Elder Song's temper very well. Elder Song had lived like a prince in the Li family for many years and had a respected status. Now, a young man suddenly appeared and wanted to compete with him. Elder Song was naturally unhappy. Right now, Li Zinan wanted to see if Old Man Song's alchemy skills were superior or if Fei Ren was better. If it was the former, then he would treat it as if nothing had happened. However, if it was the latter, then his Li family had undoubtedly picked up a huge bargain. After all, Fei Ren was a young genius who cultivated both martial arts and alchemy. If the Li family could rope him in, it would be very beneficial in the future. Elder Song, whether I have the ability or not, you'll know in a moment. Similarly, Fei Ren sensed a trace of enmity in the other party's words. Fei Ren opened his mouth again, his tone indifferent. His spiritual force had already broken through to the 8th stage of the profound martial realm, and his alchemy skills had also advanced to the 8th grade alchemist. On the other hand, Elder Song was just a mere 7th grade alchemist. It was obvious at a glance that the other party was no match for him. Shameless boasting. Brat, this old man wants to see what kind of ability you have. Faced with Fei Ren's provocation, Old Song's beard immediately puffed up as he said somewhat angrily, as a dignified 7th-tier alchemist, the Li clan's most esteemed guest, how could he allow a junior to put on airs in front of him? You dare to drink with me? I'll make you cry later. Elder Song roared in her heart. Tell me, how do you want to compete? Seeing that the fish had taken the bait, Fei Ren spoke again. There were only 2 types of alchemy duels, theory and practice. For an experienced alchemist, theory could be learned in a short period of time, such as the recitation of pill formulas and the identification of various medicinal ingredients. However, practice required a long time of refining pills, and there were no shortcuts. Therefore, the most important thing for an alchemist was their alchemy skills. Even if their theoretical knowledge was shallow, as long as their alchemy skills were strong enough, they could still refine top-grade pills. How about we compete in alchemy? Elder Song was very confident in his alchemy skills. In his opinion, Fei Ren was just a young man in his early 20s. So what if he was an alchemist? His alchemy skills were definitely limited and would not exceed the 4th grade. On the other hand, Elder Song was a 7th grade alchemist who had immersed himself in alchemy for many years. He only needed an opportunity to break through the profound martial realm and step into the ranks of an 8th grade alchemist. Therefore, in Elder Song's eyes, Fei Ren would lose without a doubt. All right, let's compete in alchemy. Faced with Elder Song's words, Fei Ren did not hesitate. This was exactly what he wanted. Family head, please move to the side. Seeing Fei Ren's calm face, Elder Song snorted again. He then gestured for Li Zinan beside him to step back. At the same time, he took out a black cauldron from his spiritual ring. Bang! The black cauldron landed heavily on the ground with a loud thud. It seemed to be quite heavy and looked very heavy. This black cauldron was called the Taishan Cauldron. Not only was its quality high, but it was also a rare cauldron for alchemy. In order to obtain this Taishan Cauldron, Elder Song had spent close to 1 million mid-grade vitality stones. Kid, since it's an alchemy competition, there should be a time limit, right? 2 hours. Fei Ren said lightly. All right, I hope you have the ability to do so. Smiling coldly, Elder Song retracted his gaze and no longer paid attention to his opponent. He raised his hand and slapped the Taishan Cauldron. In an instant, wisps of alchemy fire gushed out from his palm and wrapped around the cauldron. Then he took out a large number of herbs and demon cores from his spiritual ring and was ready to start alchemy. What he wanted to refine was the 7th grade elixir blood circulation deblicking powder. This elixir was the top of the 7th grade elixirs. Its medicinal effect was excellent. Not only could it help warriors quickly stop bleeding and heal injuries, but could also dredge the meridians and achieve the effect of replenishing vitality. To put it simply, the blood circulation deblinking powder with a high-grade healing elixir. It could be sold for at least tens of thousands of mid-grade vitality stones on the black market outside. Brat, you're going to lose. Elder Song thought fiercely in his heart. The next moment, he turned his gaze and glanced at Fei Ren beside him. However, he was suddenly stunned. Fei Ren also had a furnace placed in front of him, but its appearance was ordinary. The body of the furnace was covered with obscure inscriptions, and its size was very small. It didn't seem to be anything out of the ordinary. In fact, it couldn't even be considered a furnace. It looked more like an item from a street stall. What kind of rubbish cauldron is this? You want to beat me with this? You must be dreaming. The sneer on his face became more obvious. Elder Song immediately stopped paying attention to his opponent and began to concentrate on refining elixirs. In his heart, he had an 80% chance of winning this alchemy competition. Unless a miracle happened, Fei Ren could not beat him. After all, the quality of the elixir was not only related to the alchemist's level, but also to the cauldron. A high-grade cauldron was of great help to an alchemist. Let's refine the Heaven Pulse elixir this time. Fei Ren slowly took out the corresponding medicinal herbs and demon cores from the spiritual ring. His face was calm, although the refining Immortal cauldron in his hand did not look very good, and was not as domineering as Elder Song's Taishan cauldron. However, this was not the key to competing in alchemy. No matter how good-looking one would be useless if one did not have the ability. The refining Immortal cauldron in his hand was much more powerful than an ordinary cauldron. It was comparable to an alchemist's right-hand man. In addition, since he escaped from the Gale King, Gu Tu, the refining Immortal cauldron had undergone many changes. The strange inscriptions on the cauldron had recovered some of their luster. It was originally a quarter, but now it was half. At the same time, it had unlocked the function of automatic protection and space transmission. Chapter 612. Swoosh. Fei Ren collected his thoughts and grabbed a herb from the side. Then he threw it into the refining divine cauldron. The Heaven Pulse elixir he was going to refine was one of the 8th grade elixirs. It was very difficult and tested the refiner's patience. Once the temperature of the flame was unstable and the mixture of the herbs was out of balance, even the slightest mistake could cause the refinement to fail. Therefore, the price of the Heaven Pulse elixir had skyrocketed. It was more expensive than ordinary 8th grade elixirs. In the outside world, it would cost at least 100,000 mid-grade primordial stones to buy a Heaven Pulse elixir in the black market. And it was not guaranteed that one could get it. In addition, the effect of the Heaven Pulse elixir was much better than the 7th grade elixir, blood circulation and meridian unblocking powder, made by Elder Song. Although the blood circulation and meridian unblocking powder was a high-grade healing elixir, it had some limitations. It was only effective for experts in the martial spirit realm and had little effect on those above the martial king realm. On the other hand, the Heaven Pulse elixir was different. The Heaven Pulse elixir was not only suitable for martial king realm experts to heal injuries, but also to open up the meridians of the martial artist by Hui acupoint for a short period of time. It could improve the power of understanding and greatly improve the efficiency of cultivation. It was a rare 8th grade elixir. The difference between the two could be easily seen at a glance. Swoosh! Strands of glazed fire gushed out of his palms and rolled toward the refining divine cauldron. Fei Ren had officially started refining the elixir. Swoosh! Swoosh! Fei Ren took out dozens of herbs and piled them on the side of the hall. Now he was focused. The materials needed to refine the Heaven Pulse elixir were complicated, and Fei Ren was not 100% sure that he would succeed. He only had a 70% chance of success, so he had to prepare more materials in case of an emergency. Swoosh! A few minutes later, the cauldron wrapped in glazed fire suddenly trembled. Then it discharged a cloud of pungent black gas and waste. Did I fail? Fei Ren was not discouraged when he saw a ball of black gas and waste surging out of the immortal refining cauldron. He seemed to have expected it. In the next moment, he grabbed the medicinal materials from the side and threw them into the cauldron. His movements were neither fast nor slow, as if he was not panicked at all. Elder Song is refining a grade 7 medicinal pill, the blood circulation and meridian unblocking powder. I wonder how this kid is going to deal with it. Seeing that Fei Ren's movements were neither fast nor slow, Li Zinan, who was watching from the side, had a serious expression on his face. A hint of astonishment appeared in his eyes. By now, nearly half of the 2-hour time limit had passed. Elder Song had already finished refining the medicinal liquid and was only left with the final step of fusing it into a pill. However, Fei Ren's side seemed to have just started refining the pill and was lagging behind by more than half. Moreover, the other party had failed to refine the medicinal liquid just now, wasting a lot of medicinal herbs and magic cores. Brat, don't try to be brave if you don't have that level. It's not shameful for you to lose to me. At this moment, this scene also fell into Elder Song's eyes. He smiled coldly, and his words were full of disdain. As a grade 7 alchemist who had immersed himself in the art of alchemy for many years, he could naturally tell that the pill Fei Ren planned to refine was not an ordinary one. Moreover, its grade was not inferior to his blood circulation and meridian unblocking powder. This could be seen from the selection of medicinal herbs and magic cores. The medicinal herbs and magic cores that Fei Ren used were all high-grade goods. There were also many medicinal herbs that were more than 500 years old and earth-rank magic cores. However, if one did not have a certain level of skill in alchemy, it would be useless no matter how high-grade the ingredients were. In Elder Song's opinion, his opponent's actions were a reckless waste of resources. There was no way he could win against him. Old man, you don't have to worry about my affairs. Anyway, you're going to lose. Ignoring Elder Song's mockery, Fei Ren threw medicinal herbs and magic cores into the cauldron as he began refining the medicinal liquid. His tone was neither fast nor slow. Brat, let's see how arrogant you can be later. Hearing this, Elder Song's face flushed red like a pig's liver. He immediately fell silent and began to focus on refining pills. In terms of eloquence, he was still inferior to Fei Ren. If he continued to speak, the other party would not do anything, but he would go crazy with anger. Right now, if he wanted to humiliate the other party, he could only use the results to speak for themselves. Unknowingly, another hour had passed. This alchemy competition had finally come to an end, and Elder Song gradually retracted his alchemy fire. At the same time, he raised his hand and removed the Mount Tai cauldron. Patriarch, this old man's refinement is finished. He turned his head to look at Li Zinan, only to see that a small glass jade bottle had appeared in his left palm at some point in time. Several exquisite and bright fiery red pills were quietly placed in it. The top of the pills vaguely appeared with patterns, and the entire body emitted a luster like a longan. The fragrance of the pills assailed his nostrils. Grade 7 medicinal pill, blood circulation and meridian unblocking powder. His gaze focused, Li Zinan nodded slightly, and a hint of approval appeared on his face. Shockingly, the medicinal pill in the opponent's hand was precisely the rare 7th grade medicinal pill, the blood circulation and meridian unblocking powder. Moreover, from its appearance, it seemed that the quality of this medicinal pill was extremely good, at least reaching 90%. Although it couldn't be considered to be 99% perfect, it was still extremely rare. At the same time, on the other side, Fei Ren had finally finished refining pills. He raised his hand and removed the glass fire and the immortal refining cauldron. Large beads of sweat dripped from his forehead. This time, he had failed twice in refining the Heaven Pulse pill, but fortunately, he succeeded on the last try. As for the Heaven Pulse pill, there were 3 pills. 2 of them were of 93% quality, and the other one was of 99% perfect quality. Kid, where are the pills you refined? Take them out and let me have a look. Maybe this old man can teach you a thing or two. At this time, seeing that Fei Ren had also finished refining, Elder Song spoke again, with a hint of disdain in his voice. "Oh, then I'll ask Elder Song to teach me a thing or two." Facing the arrogant Elder Song, Fei Rin's lips curled into a playful smile. The next moment, he flicked his finger and shot a Heaven Pulse pill of 93% quality at Elder Song. "How dare you pretend to be arrogant in front of me? Your face is swollen." Sneering in his heart, Fei Rin crossed his arms in front of his chest and stood there calmly. The Grade 8 Heaven Pulse pill was far superior to the Meridian Unblocking Powder in both grade and quality. Elder Song could not win this competition of alchemy skills. Deliberately mystifying, Elder Song raised his hand to catch the Heaven Pulse pill thrown by Fei Rin and snorted. However, the next moment, his face suddenly froze and was filled with disbelief. "This is the Heaven Pulse pill," Elder Song exclaimed in a low voice. At this time, Li Zinan also stepped forward and fixed his eyes on the pill in Elder Song's palm, his face full of shock. "It's really the Heaven Pulse pill," Li Zinan thought to himself. As a LV8 Martial King Realm expert, of course, he could not be wrong. The pill in Elder Song's hand was round and blue and white. It was filled with a fragrance that seeped into people's hearts. In the middle of the pill, there were strands of thin lines that looked like the meridians of a human body. It was the 8th grade pill, Heaven Pulse pill. How is this possible? Elder Song's lips trembled slightly. Looking at the Heaven Pulse pill in his palm, his face was full of disbelief, as if he had seen a ghost. His previous arrogance was completely gone at this moment, and he stood there in a daze. In Elder Song's eyes, Fei Rin was just a young man in his early 20s. How could he be a Grade 8 alchemist? Moreover, he had refined the rarer Heaven Pulse pill. This was completely beyond his understanding. Chapter 613. Old Man, have you seen enough? While Elder Song was still in a daze, Fei Rin's mocking voice came from his side. "Now, do you still want to teach me a thing or two?" Elder Song was also a Grade 7 alchemist, so he must have seen that the elixir in his hand was a Grade 8 Heaven Pulse elixir. Moreover, Li Zinan, an LV8 Martial King Realm expert, was standing beside him as a witness. Even if Elder Song wanted to play dumb, it would be useless. Therefore, he was sure to win this alchemy contest. "You!" Elder Song's face turned red. Although he was furious and unwilling to accept Fei Rin's mockery, there was nothing he could do. With his years of experience in alchemy, he could see that the elixir in his hand was a Grade 8 Heaven Pulse elixir. Its quality was at least above 93%, which was several times better than the Grade 7 elixir of blood circulation and Meridian Unblocking elixir. By the way, I have a perfect Heaven Pulse elixir with 99% quality. If you're interested, you can have a look at it. Fei Rin grinned when he saw the other party's ugly expression. Then, he threw the perfect quality Heaven Pulse elixir at the other party, as if adding fuel to the fire. A Heaven Pulse elixir with 99% quality. Seeing this scene, Li Zinan's eyes widened. In layman's terms, a Heaven Pulse elixir with 99% quality was a perfect elixir. Even an ordinary Heaven Pulse elixir could be sold at a sky-high price, let alone the one in Fei Rin's hand that was 99% perfect. The value of this elixir alone was no less than 300,000 medium-grade primordial stones. It's this old man who is lost. Your alchemy skills are top-notch. I have eyes but failed to recognize your greatness. I admit defeat. Goodbye. Elder Song snorted and gritted his teeth. He turned around and left in a huff. His face was full of anger, as if he did not want to stay a moment longer. After all, he had said that he would take care of Fei Rin from the very beginning. Now he had been slapped in the face by the other party. Moreover, it was in front of the patriarch, Li Zinan. Naturally, he did not have any face to stay here. Who on earth is this little bastard? He can refine a perfect Grade 8 Heaven Pulse elixir at such a young age. After leaving the hall, Elder Song turned around and looked in the direction of Fei Rin with a bewildered expression. In the Li clan, as a 7th grade alchemist, he was a guest elder with the highest status. However, after today, he understood that it would be difficult for him to maintain his position. Fei Rin's alchemy skills had far surpassed his own. He was comparable to an 8th-tier alchemist. Li family, inside the hall. After Old Song left, Li Zinan gradually recovered from his shock. At the same time, he looked at Fei Rin. Little brother Fei Rin, I didn't expect you to be a grade 8 alchemist at such a young age. Even Old Song is no match for you. I was wrong earlier, Li Zinan smiled. This alchemy duel between the two had truly broadened his horizons. Although the Li clan had offended the only 7th-grade alchemist, Elder Song, because of Fei Rin, it would be a small matter if Fei Rin became a guest elder of the Li clan. After all, compared to Elder Song, Fei Rin's alchemy skills were undoubtedly stronger, and he was also younger. Senior Li is too polite. That old man's alchemy skills are actually not bad. It's just that his mentality is a little lacking. If he can't overcome this abnormal mentality, it will be very difficult for him to break through the 8th level of the profound martial realm and become an 8th-tier alchemist. Faced with Li Zinan's praise, Fei Rin grinned. At the same time, he pointed out Elder Song's shortcomings. Little brother Fei Rin, with your ability, you are more than qualified to become a guest elder of the Li clan. If you need anything in the future, just let me know. Li Zinan nodded again. Obviously, he recognized the other party's ability. After all, Fei Rin was an 8th-tier alchemist. The Li clan naturally couldn't miss out on such a talent. Otherwise, the other two forces in Taishan City, the Wu clan and the City Lord's mansion, might snatch him away. At that time, the Li clan would suffer a great loss. Coincidentally, I do have something that I need the Li clan's help with. Fei Rin rubbed his nose and said unhurriedly. Now that he was a guest elder of the Li clan, his status was high and his treatment was generous. Naturally, he wanted to use the Li clan's powerful intelligence network and connections to inquire about the dragon sect and his birth parents. What is it? Senior Li, you should have heard of the dragon sect, Fei Rin said again. The dragon sect. Li Zinan's face turned solemn as his tone turned solemn. Little brother, although the Heavenly Dragon sect used to be the #1 sect in the Black Star continent, it was besieged by countless forces in the Black Star continent in the Great War 30 years ago. Not only is the sect's Heavenly King missing, but the entire Heavenly Dragon sect also suffered heavy losses. It can be said that it has provoked countless powerful enemies. Why do you want to know about the Heavenly Dragon sect? In his impression, any cultivator who got involved with the dragon sect would have a miserable end. There is no lack of being hunted down by various forces. Even in northern continent, where the dragon sect originated, was no exception. Basically, no one wanted to have a relationship with the dragon sect. In addition, the dragon sect had disappeared without a trace. Its power was far from what it used to be. There was very little information about the remnants of the sect. Only a few giants in the Black Star continent knew the inside story. Therefore, Li Zinan was very surprised to hear that Fei Rin wanted to inquire about the dragon sect. During that great war 30 years ago, I was not born yet. It seems like my parents should still be alive. Those bastards who participated in the annihilation of the dragon sect. Just wait for this young master. Having heard this, Fei Rin's expression slightly trembled. His fists under his sleeves couldn't help but quietly clench as endless anger surged in his heart. His parents were members of the dragon sect. Back then, they were hunted down by many forces in the continent. Now, their fate was unknown. Although Fei Rin didn't know what kind of powerful enemies he was about to face, even Zhang Qingyang and Guanfeng were very wary of them in the past and didn't dare to mention half a word. He was a man of honor. If he didn't take revenge, then he wasn't a man. Inside the hall. If that's the case, then forget it. Thank you for the reminder, Senior Li. Fei Rin calmed his mind and forced himself to calm down. He did not reveal any emotional fluctuations as he said with a faint smile. That's good. All right, little brother, I have a presumptuous request. As if remembering something, Li Zinan said again. Senior, what's the matter? Fei Rin's face was a little puzzled. Li Zinan was a level 8 Martial King expert. Naturally, he was very surprised that he needed his help. It's actually not a big deal. I hope you can represent our Leaf family in the City Lord Mansion competition in 2 months. Compared to your strength, the so-called young geniuses of our Leaf family are a little inferior. Lee Zenon smiled faintly, and then said with some helplessness, City Lord Mansion competition? Hearing this, Fei Run was stunned. Chapter 614. It's like this. The City Lord's Mansion competition is an annual event in Taishan City. The participants are mainly the younger generation of the three forces. The purpose is to train each other. If the participants can obtain good results in the City Lord's Mansion competition, they will be able to obtain good rewards. As for these rewards, they are provided by the three major forces. Some of the rewards are extremely rare. Little brother Fei Run, you should be interested. Li Zenon nodded and said, If I represent the Leaf family in the competition, all these rewards will be given to me, right? Fei Run almost understood the meaning of the other party's words. He touched his nose again and smiled. Obviously, Lee Zenon felt that the younger generation of the Leaf family was not strong enough and did not have the confidence to achieve good results in the City Lord's Mansion competition, so he intended to borrow his strength. After all, the City Lord's Mansion competition was an annual event in Taishan City. If the Leaf family did not perform well, or even ranked at the bottom, it would inevitably be a little embarrassing. Therefore, Lee Zenon intended to ask Fei Run to help. This move could be said to be killing two birds with one stone. Little brother Fei Run is indeed a smart person. Lee Zenon smiled and said, That's right. As long as little brother can help our Lee clan gain face in the City Lord's Mansion tournament, those rewards are nothing. Our Lee clan will also give you an additional gift. Okay. Without any hesitation, Fei Run said decisively. After all, this was a benefit that came to him for free. He would not refuse it. Moreover, with his current strength, looking at the entire three forces of Taishan City, except for the veteran Martial King Realm Masters like Lee Zenon, he really did not take the rest of the younger generation seriously. After all, no matter how strong these people were, they were not as strong as the fierce Wind King, Gu Tu, who had hunted him down. Back in the Heavenly Demon Secret territory, even the fierce Wind King, Gu Tu, who was in the third level of the Martial King realm, could not kill him. Now that Fei Run's cultivation had greatly increased, and his strength had soared several times, it was even more impossible for him to lose to the younger generation of the three forces of Taishan City. Father, you were looking for me? At this time, a faint male voice came from outside. In the next moment, a figure flashed into the hall, then came before Lee Zenon and cupped his hands. The person who came was a tall young man with black hair and a long robe. He had thick eyebrows and big eyes, and his skin was slightly dark. He looked like a person who had been practicing martial arts all year round. His entire person exuded an upright and plain-spoken temperament. Little Lee, you're back. Seeing the black-haired young man arrive, Lee Zenon's face also revealed a trace of a smile as he warmly said. The other party was his eldest son, Li, who was also the current young clan leader of the Li family. His strength was impressive at such a young age, and his cultivation had reached the 8th tier of the martial spirit realm. Although he was slightly inferior to Fei Run, he was among the top of the younger generation in Taishan City. Father, this is... Shifting his gaze, Lily also noticed Fei Run beside him. The other party's appearance was ordinary, and his face was unfamiliar. Furthermore, his essence energy aura was extremely ordinary, and he didn't seem to be someone with profound strength. At that moment, Lily looked down on Fei Run. I forgot to introduce you. This little brother is, so you're the young clan leader of the Leaf family. Hello. Just as Lee Zenon was about to introduce, he saw Fei Run take a step forward and then extend his right hand to the other party with a smile on his face. I don't deal with the weak. Facing Fei Run's kindness, Lily raised his eyebrows slightly and then said coldly. Even in front of Lee Zenon, he didn't intend to give the other party any face. Little Lee, what are you doing? Don't be rude. Lee Zenon's face darkened, and then he scolded. He seemed to be somewhat dissatisfied. After all, Fei Run was an external aid that he had painstakingly invited, Not to mention that the other party was a rare 8th-tier alchemist, a genius who cultivated both martial arts and alchemy. You're right, I think so too. Glancing at Lily again, Faerun slowly withdrew his right hand. There was a hint of playfulness in his tone, as if he wasn't angry at the other party's attitude. What do you mean? Literally. Frowning slightly, Lily's face was somewhat serious. Although the other party didn't say it clearly, he wasn't a fool. Naturally, he could tell that Faerun's words had a double meaning. Where did this kid come from? How dare he look down on me? Thinking of this, Lily couldn't help but feel angry. In the next moment, he stretched out his right hand and punched towards Faerun. Bang! Opening his 5 fingers, he raised his hand to catch Lily's fist. Faerun's face was still calm as he said indifferently, "Young clan leader Lee's temper is quite big, but I'm not your enemy. Why do you have to fight?" "What?" Martial Spirit, Realm, Level 10. Seeing that his right fist was firmly restrained by the other party, not only was he unable to move an inch, but his yuan power was also at a disadvantage. Lily's face changed slightly, and he exclaimed in a low voice. At this moment, he finally saw Faerun's true cultivation. In addition, Faerun's physical strength was also very strong. Even if he used his yuan power, he couldn't break free from the other party's grasp. An expert. At this moment, Lily also withdrew his contempt for Faerun, and it turned into deep fear and shock. Whoosh! His tiger body shook, and another majestic force gushed out from his palm. Then, it forced Lily's body back a few steps. Faerun still had a smile on his face. "Young clan leader Lee, I don't know if I can deal with you now. Your strength is extraordinary. I was rude earlier. I'm sorry." Hearing this, Lily's face was a little strange. Then, he awkwardly cupped his hands towards Faerun. Previously, he naturally saw that the other party had held back. Otherwise, he wouldn't have just taken a few steps back. At the very least, he would have spat out a few mouthfuls of blood, or even be seriously injured. If he still didn't tactfully lower his head now, he wouldn't be young and frivolous, but extremely stupid. "You brat, you're still as reckless as ever. You almost offended the Leaf family's distinguished guest." At the side, seeing that the conflict had been resolved, Li Zenon also leaned forward and said somewhat resentfully, "Father, I'm sorry, no need. This little brother's name is Faerun. In the future, he will be one of our Leaf family's guest elders. His status is even higher than elder songs. In the future, you better watch your manners." Waving his hand, Li Zenon spoke again. "What?" Hearing this, Lily was a little shocked. After all, Elder Song was the only grade 7 alchemist in their family. Faerun's status was even higher than Elder Song's. Could it be that the other party's alchemy skills were even higher, and he was a grade 8 alchemist? "Brotherly, in the City Lord's Mansion competition in 2 months, please take care of me." Without waiting for Li to recover, Faerun spoke again. His tone was indifferent, as if he wasn't interested in fame and fortune. "Brother Fei is too polite. In the future, just call me Li. I really don't dare." So Brother Fei is one of the external aides that Father invited this time. With Brother Fei's help, our Li family will definitely be able to achieve good results in the City Lord's Mansion competition. Seeing this scene, Lily also withdrew the doubts in his heart and cupped his hands again. In the world of martial arts, the strong had always been respected. The strength of Faerun in front of him was far greater than his. It was not a problem for him to call the other a senior, let alone a brother. Time flew by, and 2 months passed in the blink of an eye. The City Lord's Mansion competition finally began. The City Lord's Mansion, which belonged to the Sword Sect and the 2 fourth-rank families of Taishan City, the Leaf family and the Wu family. These 3 forces would send their best young geniuses to the arena where the City Lord's Mansion was located to participate in the annual City Lord's Mansion competition. Chapter 615. In a quiet courtyard of the Li clan, it's time to come out of seclusion. Faerun sat cross-legged with his hands folded in front of him. His eyes flickered with light as he gradually stopped cultivating. After 2 months of seclusion, his mastery of the Overlord's record of Western Shu had improved and reached greater mastery. As his mastery of the Overlord's record of Western Shu deepened, he also became more adept at using the Overlord's demonic rune. In addition, Fei Ren didn't neglect the tempering of his mental force during his long seclusion. His mental force was originally in the 8th stage of the profound martial realm, but now it had reached the 9th stage and was comparable to a 9th-grade alchemist. Above the 9th stage of the profound martial realm was the Earth Gate. Breaking through to the Earth Gate required an opportunity and wasn't something that could be achieved through hard work. Therefore, Fei Ren knew when to stop and didn't force himself to break through to the Earth Gate realm. "Brother Fei, it's time for us to go." At this time, a shout came from outside the courtyard. Lily had been waiting for a long time, and there were also several Li Clan juniors that Lin Yun had never seen before. "Sorry to keep you waiting." With a leap, Fei Ren arrived in front of them and nodded. "Is this person our Li Clan's foreign aide? It shouldn't be wrong. His aura is unfathomable. To be able to make the young patriarch so respectful, this person must be very powerful." Unlike Li, the Li Clan juniors looked at Fei Ren with surprise. It was obvious that this was the first time they saw Fei Ren. Outside the Castellan mansion not long after, Fei Ren and Li arrived at the entrance. Just as they were about to enter, they saw a young man in a red robe walking towards them. "Li, I trust you've been well since we last met, but you still look as weak as before." The corner of the young man's mouth rose. His eyes were spirited, and his hands were wrapped in thick white bandages. He seemed to be a martial artist that specialized in fist techniques. His background wasn't small, and there were several martial spirit realm juniors following behind him. "Wu Yang, you're still as annoying as ever." Glancing at the scarlet-robed youth, Li said coldly. It was rare that he didn't get angry. It was as if he didn't want to fight with the scarlet-robed youth here. "Same to you. I won't be merciful in the arena later." The red-robed young man, named Wu Yang, also smiled coldly. He raised his fist again, then turned around and left with his people. "Who is this guy?" Fei Ren asked after the red-robed young man left. He could see that the other party's origin energy was very strong. Although he was not his match, he had reached LV9 martial spirit realm and was slightly stronger than Li. This was also the reason why the other party dared to provoke Li. His name is Wu Yang, the son of that old dog Wu Tiansheng. He's been my nemesis for many years. Compared to Yin Tianqing of the City Lord's mansion, this guy who hides a knife behind his smile is even more detestable. I wanted to teach him a lesson for a long time. However, with my strength, I can at most fight him to a standstill. I can't do anything to him, Lily explained methodically. A trace of dissatisfaction could be vaguely seen on his face. It seemed that he was very unhappy with the scarlet-robed youth from before. Right now, if it weren't for the fact that he was about to participate in the City Lord's Mansion Grand Competition and that Fei Ren was beside him, he would definitely rush up and fight with the other party. Even if he couldn't win in the end, he had to take down the other party's prestige. The Wu family. Hearing this, Fei Ren looked thoughtful. Then, he raised his hand and patted Li's shoulder. He grinned and said, "Don't worry, I'll avenge you in a while. Of course it's good that Brother Fei is here." Hearing this, Lily was also stunned. Then he laughed out loud. In his opinion, with the cultivation of LV10 martial spirit realm, even if he couldn't defeat Yin Tianqing of the City Lord's mansion, it would be easy for him to deal with Wu Yang, who was at LV9 martial spirit realm. In the City Lord's mansion arena, the atmosphere was heated and the sound of drums shook the sky. As far as the eye could see, it was an incomparably spacious arena. Beside it were large and small viewing platforms. Among them, there were 3 separate viewing platforms at the highest point. They were spacious and luxurious, and seemed to be specially prepared for the high-ranking members of the 3 forces. After a while, the people of the 3 forces had all gathered. Among them, there were 3 tall and imposing figures standing on the highest viewing platform. At the same time, they exuded waves of terrifying aura that were full of oppressive force. In the face of this powerful oppressive force, everyone present looked solemn and respectful. The people on the viewing platform were the Li family patriarch Li Zenin, the Wu family patriarch Wu Tiansheng, and the City Lord's Mansion Master Yunao, who belonged to the Sword Sect. The three of them were known as the Three Giants of Taishian City and were also Martial King realm experts. Among them, Li Zinan and Wu Tiansheng were both LV8 Martial King realm experts. As for the City Lord's Mansion Master Yunao, he was an LV9 Martial King realm expert. His strength was even stronger. Brother Wu, Brother Yin, almost everyone is here. It's time to start, Li Zinan said as he looked around. At the same time, he glanced at the two people beside him. Okay. Wu Tiansheng was silent. His old face was still tense. It seemed that he did not get along with Li Zinan. On the other hand, Yin Ao, who was in the middle, nodded slightly, indicating that he had no objections. I announced that the City Lord's Mansion competition will now begin. Seeing this scene, the few judges, who had been waiting at the side of the martial arts arena since long ago, also understood tacitly. One of the judges stepped forward and shouted, in front of the Li family team, "It's finally begun." Seeing that the competition had finally begun, Li rubbed his hands together. His eyes fell on the Wu family team, not far away. His eyes were burning with fighting spirit, as if he could not wait to rush up and fight with them. The City Lord's Mansion competition was a rotating system. The losers were eliminated in one round, while the winners could continue to challenge and could only rest for 30 minutes. As for the number of people, each force could send at most 5 young geniuses. The first round, Wu Tong versus Li Fu. Soon, the judge announced the opponents of the first round. Swoosh! As soon as he finished speaking, a young warrior from the Wu family also leaped onto the stage. His gaze swept across the surroundings, and then he hooked his index finger at a Li family junior below the stage. His actions were full of provocation. It seemed to be Wu Tong. Is this kid pretending? Seeing this scene, the crowd was shocked. As for some of the Li family juniors, their faces turned ugly as if they had been provoked. Kid, don't be too arrogant. I'll teach you how to behave in a moment. In the next moment, a Li clan junior leaped up and similarly arrived on the martial arena. His gloomy face was like a piece of charcoal. You're Li Fu? A mere level 6 martial spirit realm cultivation is nothing much. Seeing the newcomer, the corners of the young martial artist, named Wu Tong's mouth curled up, still revealing a trace of disdain. His cultivation was at level 7 martial spirit realm, which was a level higher than Li Fu's. If Li Fu did not have any trump cards, there was a high chance that he would be defeated. Therefore, Wu Tong was very confident in this battle. He wanted to help the Wu family win the City Lord's Mansion competition. Chapter 6:16. How arrogant! Li Fu's anger rose when he heard Wu Tong's arrogant words. He roared and dashed toward Wu Tong. Swish! Swish! Strands of yuan li gushed out from each of his palms. Then, they transformed into 2 bright blue magic balls that fell directly around Wu Tong. Twin dragons playing with pearls. Li Fu circulated the elemental energy in his body to the maximum. He seemed to have used his killer move right from the start, not intending to hold back. Good. Wu Tong laughed when he saw Li Fu's furious attack. A hint of viciousness flashed across his face. Break! Bang bang! Rumble! He stretched out his left hand, and countless strands of yuan li condensed into one. Then, it turned into an incomparably sturdy and tall barrier. Immediately, it blocked the 2 blue magic balls that were flying toward him, causing a series of rumbling sounds. The light of the magic balls dimmed and then collapsed. At this moment, Wu Tong was completely unharmed. What? Li Fu wasn't the only one who was stunned. The spectators were stunned as well. After all, there was only a difference of 1 level between them. Logically speaking, the difference in strength shouldn't be so great. Li Fu's all-out attack didn't even injure Wu Tong in the slightest. It was truly surprising. Moreover, Li Fu's twin dragons playing with pearls was no ordinary martial art. Its power was comparable to a grade 8 martial art. Impossible. His cultivation is only slightly higher than mine. How can twin dragons playing with pearls be ineffective against him? On the other side of the arena, Li Fu quickly retreated and landed in a corner. He looked at Wu Tong with a hint of surprise in his eyes. It seemed that Wu Tong had other trump cards in addition to his cultivation. It's over. Just as Li Fu was thinking about his next move, Wu Tong's cold voice came from his side. Whoosh, whoosh. A gust of wind whizzed past as a figure appeared behind Li Fu. At the same time, a heavy palm landed on Li Fu's back, giving him no time to react. The force of the blow was as fast as lightning. Bang! Li Fu felt an enormous force coming from his back. His face turned green and red, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. He was sent flying out of the ring. Poochie! Li Fu crawled up from the ground in a sorry state. The next moment, he spat out another mouthful of blood. A few of his teeth had fallen out, and his eyes were filled with disbelief. As a LV6 martial spirit realm martial artist, he could not accept the fact that he had been defeated by Wu Tong with a single palm strike. Thanks for letting me win, Wu Tong said coldly as he glanced at the unwilling Li Fu. He then left the battle arena in a flash and headed toward the Wu clan's team. Although this battle seemed clean and tidy, only he himself knew that in order to defeat Li Fu, he had exhausted a lot of Yuan Qi and urgently needed to rest and recuperate. Wu Tong had used up about 80% of the Yuan power in his Dantian to unleash an ordinary palm strike. Its power was close to that of an expert at the 8th level of the martial spirit realm. It's a pity that Li Fu lost. I thought it would be a good fight, but I didn't expect it to end so quickly. Now that the Wu clan has won the first round, it's up to the City Lord's mansion and the Li clan to get back at them. Don't worry, that monster Yun Tianqing hasn't made his move yet. With his strength, I'm afraid that even if Wu Yang and Li Li fought together, they wouldn't be his match. As the first battle ended, the spectators in the battle arena began to discuss animatedly. The atmosphere gradually reached a climax. In front of the Li clan's team, Li Fu, you're too useless. You were defeated by Wu Tong with a single palm strike. When Li Fu returned to the team, Li Li crossed his arms in dissatisfaction. After all, Li Fu represented the Li clan of Taishan City. Now that he had been defeated by the Wu clan, it was a great loss of face. Young clan leader, we were incompetent. I'm sorry. Faced with Li Li's reprimand, Li Fu, whose aura was somewhat weak, smiled bitterly. He could not help but feel dejected. After all, he had lost. No matter how he tried to explain, it would just be an excuse. Actually, it's not all his fault. Although Wu Tong's cultivation is only at the 7th level of the martial spirit realm, he's not simple. Fei Ren's indifferent voice came from his side. Oh, Brother Fei, what do you see? Li Li also turned his head and looked at Fei Ren. His tone was surprised. In fact, he also felt a little strange. Although Li Fu's cultivation was not as high as Wu Tong's and was 1 level lower, he should not have lost so miserably. This battle was simply a one-sided suppression by Wu Tong. If I'm not wrong, that palm strike contained the power of the Wei, and more than one kind. Fei Ren nodded and explained. More than one kind of power of the Wei? I see. Hearing this, Li Li was stunned at first. Then he suddenly understood. If Wu Tong had mastered 2 kinds of power of the Wei, plus his own cultivation advantage, then Li Fu's defeat was inevitable. There was nothing surprising about it. The Way of the Earth and the Way of the Wind. Although these 2 are the most common Way of the Wei and are derived from the 5 elements, to be able to master 2 kinds of Wei at the same time and to reach the lesser mastery realm, this person's strength is not bad, Fei Ren said unhurriedly. With his present strength realm, he naturally saw through Wu Tong's background with one glance. Previously on the arena, Wu Tong used the power of the Way of the Earth to block Li Fu's twin dragons playing with a pearl, and then used the power of the Way of the Wind to use a full-strength palm strike to heavily injure Li Fu. Li Fu was already weaker than Wu Tong in terms of cultivation, so he was naturally no match for Wu Tong, who had used all his trump cards. Damn it! On the side, Li Fu lowered his head in shame. Other than shock, there was also a deep sense of unwillingness in his eyes. Compared to Wu Tong, he had only comprehended the power of the Way of the Wei and had not advanced it into a Way of the Wei. Moreover, there was a gap of 1 level in cultivation. Therefore, He was naturally no match for Wu Tong. I see. No wonder this little bastard is so arrogant. But a mere lesser mastery realm Wei can't do anything to me. My only target is that guy Wu Yong. Hearing this, Lily crossed his arms in front of his chest and nodded thoughtfully. You're right, these are just small fries. Feiren also grinned. In his heart, he was very clear that the other party was not being arrogant. Although Wu Tong's strength was not weak, Li Li's strength was even stronger. In the entire Wu family team, perhaps only Wu Yong could stop him. City Lord's office, the leader of the 3 major forces of Taishan City, one of the 18 cities of the Sword Sect. Let me see how strong your foundation is, licking his dry lips. Fei Ren's eyes were full of fighting spirit. Unlike Li Li, Fei Ren's target was not the Wu family, but the team of the City Lord's office on the other side. They had also sent 5 young geniuses to participate in this competition, and the strongest among them was the son of the City Lord, Yin Ao, the disciple of the Sword Sect, known as the #1 genius of the City Lord's office, Yin Tianqing. Chapter 617. While Fei Ren was thinking, the next round of the competition began one after another. There were 2 young geniuses, a man and a woman. The difference in their cultivation levels was not great. They were both around the 7th level of the martial spirit realm. One of them was from the Wu family, and the other young woman was from the Sword Sect. In Taishan City, almost everyone knew the relationship between the City Lord's mansion and the Sword Sect. Taishan City, where the City Lord's mansion was located, was also one of the 18 cities of the Sword Sect. Therefore, the strength of this young woman from the Sword Sect could not be underestimated. She was definitely not as simple as an ordinary 7th level martial spirit realm cultivator. In the arena, the atmosphere was fiery. The young woman stood slender and elegant. She wore a white robe and held a long sword in her hand. Her handsome face revealed traces of heroic spirit. Opposite her stood a thin disciple of the Wu family. He seemed to be her opponent. It's Fong Bailu. It's finally her turn. Looking at the white-robed woman who was full of heroic spirit in the arena, Lily crossed his arms and teased. His eyes revealed a trace of playfulness. Her strength should be slightly stronger than that Wu Tong. Fei Ren's gaze also fell on the white-robed woman named Fong Bailu. He nodded. He sensed an extraordinary sword aura from her body. The disciples of the Sword Sect lived up to their reputation. After all, in the northern continent, the Sword Sect was also one of the 3rd-grade forces. They had a vast territory of 18 cities and were known as the 18 cities of the Sword Sect. Therefore, the disciples of the Sword Sect were naturally not weak. Lili, it seems that you're quite interested in this Fong Bailu. Don't tell me you. Noticing the subtle change in Li Li's expression, Fei Ren immediately grinned and joked. With his status as the young master of the Li family, if he could marry a disciple of the Sword Sect, it would be considered a match. It was human nature. However, to Fei Ren's surprise, Lily shook his head and said with a smile, Brother Fei, you've misunderstood. It's not that I'm interested in this girl. It's someone else. As his voice faded, the other party glanced at Wu Yong, who was standing nearby, with a mocking smile on his face. He wasn't interested in the disciple of the Sword Sect, Fong Bailu, but the young master of the Wu clan, Wu Yong, was different. He'd been madly pursuing Fong Bailu recently, and Shenxi's intention was to defeat Wu Yong before Fong Bailu and make Wu Yong lose all face. Being defeated by his former enemy in front of the woman he liked was definitely a huge blow. I see. After knowing what had happened, Fei Ren smiled helplessly and shrugged. He had to admit that the other party's imagination was indeed impressive. In the arena, you are no match for me. Fong Bailu said coldly as she glanced indifferently at the Wu family disciple. Her tone was filled with arrogance. Although her opponent's cultivation was similar to hers, she was 90% confident that she could defeat this Wu family disciple in 3 moves. As a disciple of the Sword Sect, her sword technique had already been cultivated to the point of perfection. At the same time, She was second only to Yun Tianqing among the younger generation of the city governor's estate. Miss Fong, aren't you being too confident? Faced with Fong Bailu's threat, the Wu family disciple's expression turned ugly as he spoke angrily. After all, he was at the 7th level of the martial spirit realm and a genius of the 4th rank Wu clan. If he was persuaded to retreat by a single sentence, he would no longer have the face to stay in the Jianghu if news of this spread. Take this. Stomping his foot on the ground, the Wu family disciple also attacked. A pair of black maces had appeared in his hands at some point, and he immediately smashed them towards Fong Bailu's chest. He didn't have any intention of showing any mercy to her. Swoosh! Swoosh! The black truncheons stirred up the wind. Mixed with surging origin energy, their destructive power was astonishing. It seemed that the Wu family disciple had been angered by Fong Bailu's threat. This kid is so ruthless. Outside the arena, everyone's eyelids twitched. If this attack hit, at least a few ribs would be broken. In front of the Wu clan's team. This idiot. If he dares to hurt Bailu, even if I win in the end, I won't let him go. Wu Yang's face was also livid. He clenched his fists tightly and looked as if he was about to rush up and stop Fong Bailu. After all, almost everyone in Taishan City knew that he liked Fong Bailu, a disciple of the Sword Sect. Young clan leader, don't panic. Miss Fong is a disciple of the Sword Sect. It won't be that easy. Wu Tong smiled bitterly. However, before he could finish, a loud rumble suddenly came from the side. Boom! Before anyone could see what had happened, the Wu family disciple was sent flying backward. At the same time, he spat out a mouthful of blood and fell outside the arena like a dead pig. At this moment, his eyes were white and his breath was weak. Even the black truncheons in his hands had fallen to the side. One move to kill. Compared to the previous battle between Wu Tong and Li Fu, Fong Bailu's battle was more clean and decisive. She only used one move in the entire battle. Among the young geniuses present, except for Yun Tianqing of the City Lord's office, Wu Yang of the Wu family, Li Li, and Fei Run, the others didn't even see their opponent's movements clearly before the outcome was revealed. Damn, is this Fong Bailu's true strength? I'm afraid this woman is no weaker than any expert of LV8 martial spirit realm. A Li family disciple was shocked. Just like everyone else, he only saw Fong Bailu's figure flash and dodged the Wu family disciple's attack. The next moment, the Wu family disciple spat out blood and fell outside the arena. Fong Bailu didn't even use her long sword. It was enough to show the huge gap in strength between the two sides. You can't even withstand a single blow. Ignoring the unconscious Wu family disciple outside the arena, Fong Bailu's red lips parted slightly. Then, she gently turned around and left the arena. She returned to the City Lord's office team, her figure cold and arrogant. Well done, Bailu. As soon as she returned to the team, a hearty man's laughter came from the side. The next moment, a young man wearing a cloud robe and a jade hairpin stepped forward. There was also a green sword hanging from his waist. He seemed to be a disciple of the sword faction of the City Lord's office, just like Fong Bailu. Senior Brother Yin, you flatter us. Compared to your strength, we're just mediocre. Looking at the smiling young man in front of her, Fong Bailu nodded slightly to show her respect. He was none other than the #1 genius of the City Lord's office, the son of Yun Ao, Yun Tianqing. Although her strength was extraordinary and her attainments in swordsmanship were exquisite, she was much weaker than Yun Tianqing in front of her. Although Fong Bailu was usually arrogant and cold, she knew her own limits on this point. According to some rumors in Taishan City, Yun Tianqing seemed to have stepped into the martial king realm half a year ago. His strength was unfathomable. Even if all the remaining disciples of the sword faction worked together, they might not be a match for Yun Tianqing. Chapter 618. At this time, the battle in the arena was still ongoing. Following that, a few other young geniuses from the 3 major powers stepped forward to compete. However, their strength was only so-so, and they were not as good as Wu Tong, Fong Bailu, and the others. This caused Fei Run, who was watching from the side, to feel somewhat sleepy. With his current strength, these people's fights were like children's play in his eyes. There was nothing to watch at all. After a while, half of the City Lord's Mansion competition was over, and only 5 or 6 of the 15 participants were left. Among them, except for Wu Yang from the Wu family, Yin Tianqing, Fong Bailu, Li Li, and Fei Ren from the City Lord's Mansion, the rest of the young geniuses were all eliminated. As for the rankings of the 3 major forces in this City Lord's Mansion competition, the City Lord's Mansion was in first place with a total of 5 victories, while the Wu family was in second place with 3 victories, and the Li family was in last place. They only had 2 victories. Moreover, these 2 victories were won by Li Li and Fei Ren respectively. The other 3 juniors of the Li family, including Li Fu, were all defeated and left the arena. In the spectator stand, Wu Tianxing's old face trembled slightly, and then he said in a mocking tone, "Li Zinan, it seems that the Li family is in last place again in this City Lord's Mansion competition." Although the Wu family and the Li family were both 4th-ranked families and one of the 3 major forces in Taishan City, they were secretly at odds with each other and had been competing with each other for many years. Therefore, when he saw that the Li family's team was not doing well, he mocked them mercilessly. "Brother Wu, I'm afraid it's too early for you to say that. I'm afraid that when the time comes, you will be slapped in the face, and the result will be unacceptable." However, in the face of Wu Tianxing's provocation, Li Zinan was not angry, which was rare. The corners of his mouth curled up slightly as he mocked back. Although Li Li's strength was not enough to defeat Wu Yang, this City Lord's Mansion competition was different from the past. They still had Fei Run, who was a powerful external aid. With Fei Ren's strength, even if he was defeated by Yin Tianqing, he would be able to beat Wu Yang, the young master of the Wu family. The Li family would not be in last place and could save their last shred of dignity. In addition, looking at all the cultivators present, except for him and Li Li, no one knew about Fei Ren's identity and true strength. Right now, the City Lord's Mansion Grand Competition hasn't ended yet. Both of you should continue watching. At the side, seeing the 2 of them bickering again, Yin Ao smiled faintly and tried to smooth things over. This Li Zinan guy, where did his confidence come from? Could it be that Li Li's cultivation base has broken through again? Although he seemed to be trying to persuade the 2 of them, he was secretly glancing at Li Zinan from the corner of his eyes. His face was slightly surprised. "No, it's that kid." Yin Ao's gaze turned and stopped at Fei Run, who was standing in front of the Li family's team. As the mansion master of the City Lord's Mansion and one of the Sword Sect's elders, Yin Ao was very experienced. He could tell that Fei Ren was not weak at all. Although Fei Ren seemed to be able to suppress his aura on the surface, his origin energy cultivation had already reached the 10th level of the Martial Spirit Realm. LV10 Martial Spirit Realm. His strength is second only to Tianqing, and he's only in his early 20s. This kid shouldn't be from around Taishan City. Could it be that he's also a genius from a large sect or family? The younger generation will surpass us in time. Taking a deep breath, Yin Ao pondered for a moment before a trace of admiration appeared in his eyes. Although Fei Run was not a disciple of the Sword Sect, his talent and strength had already won his appreciation. Next up is the second round of the City Lord's Mansion Grand Competition. You are free to challenge. At this time, the referee at the side of the arena spoke again. "Free to challenge? Let's get this over with quickly." Fei Ren reached out and touched his chin. "Brother Fei, let me go first for this round." However, just as he was about to make a move, Li Li stepped forward and blocked him behind him. "Li Li, are you going to fight?" Seeing Li Li's action, Fei Ren was slightly surprised. At this time, the grand competition of the City Lord's Mansion had already reached the second round. The opponents on the field, whether it was Yin Tianqing from the City Lord's Mansion, Fong Bailu, or Wu Yang from the Wu family, were not ordinary people. With Li Li's strength, it was still difficult for him to fight against these people. At present, The Li family only had 2 victories and was ranked at the bottom. Therefore, Fei Ren planned to personally help the Li family win a few rounds and then challenge Yun Tianqing from the City Lord Mansion. He wanted to take first place and get the final reward. Brother Fei, I'll help you force Wu Yang to use his trump card first. As long as we can defeat him, it doesn't matter if the Li family is ranked at the bottom. Li smiled. Are you really going to fight? Fei Ren asked again. After all, Wu Yang's cultivation was at LV9 Martial Spirit Realm, and he had the advantage of a small realm. However, Li seemed to have made up his mind and was determined to fight with his opponent, so he nodded again. Okay then, be careful. That guy is not weak. He seems to be good at fist techniques. Seeing the determination on Li's face, Fei Ren did not say anything else. Then, he shrugged and reminded him. Brother Fei, don't worry. That guy's my old rival. Of course I know that. After saying that, Li leaped onto the arena in the next moment. Then he hooked his index finger at Wu Yang, who was at the front of the Wu family's team on the other side. It was full of provocation. Wu Yang, do you dare to fight me? Why wouldn't I? In the face of Li's invitation, Wu Yang's face froze for a moment. Then he laughed out loud and also leaped into the air and landed on the arena. Li, you asked for it. See if I don't cripple you. Slowly removing the white bandages around his hands, Wu Yang's slightly tanned face revealed a trace of ruthlessness and viciousness as he sneered. The Wu family and the Li family had a grudge for many years, and he and Li were old rivals. Therefore, he naturally would not show mercy to Li. If it were not for the fact that Li Zinan was present, Wu Yang even wanted to kill Li directly instead of just crippling him. Wu, I'm afraid you don't have the ability. Die! Li also snorted coldly. In the next moment, he also attacked violently. His body rushed out like a spring. Then, he lifted his leg and swept it towards Wu Yang's head. Rolling origin energy mixed with physical strength made the power of this kick like a fierce tiger coming down the mountain. It was ferocious. Compared to Wu Yang, who was good at fist techniques, Li was better at leg techniques. Moreover, it was the shadowless kick that was as swift as the wind. Bang! Swish! The fist and leg collided. Wu Yang's left fist was in front of his body, barely blocking the opponent's kick. At the same time, his right fist blasted out again, aiming at the opponent's chest. It was very sneaky. After all, if the opponent continued to attack, he would have to take the power of his punch head-on. Scram! Also aware of Wu Yang's intention, Li also hurriedly retracted his right foot. At the same time, his left foot fiercely kicked at the opponent's fist. With the help of this impact, his body fell to the back of the arena. These two people, one using fists and one using legs, they're indeed old enemies. On the side, looking at Li and Wu Yang, who were fighting fiercely in the arena, Fei Ren also touched his nose with a sigh. Chapter 619. Boom! There was another explosion in the arena. Swoosh! Swoosh! In the next moment, Li and Wu Yang both retreated. It seemed that they were on par again. This guy's strength has increased again. Feeling the soreness and pain in his legs, Li's face turned solemn. He then used his origin energy to suppress the discomfort. On the surface, it seemed that he was on par with Wu Yang, and neither of them could do anything to the other. However, Li knew very well that Wu Yang had not used his full strength, but he had already used his full strength. Even so, the leg attack that he was good at still could not break through Wu Yang's defense. At the same time, he was almost injured by Wu Yang's extremely cold fist attack. If it was not for his solid cultivation, Li's legs would not be as simple as soreness and pain after this fierce battle. Instead, his bones would be broken, and he might even be crippled. Warm-up is over. It seems that you don't have any other trump cards. Exhaling a mouthful of turbid air, Wu Yang also raised the corner of his mouth and revealed a ruthless smile. It seemed that he was finally going to use his full strength. King of Flame Fist. With a loud roar, Wu Yang also used all of his Yuan power in the next moment. Rolling Yuan power, surged forward like a heat wave, then turned into an incomparably huge, fiery red fist shadow. On the fist shadow, there were wisps of fire snakes faintly appearing. It seemed to be a powerful, high-grade martial art. Earth-rank martial art. At this moment, seeing Wu Yang use his killing move, the spectators were shocked and exclaimed in a low voice. With the cultivation of LV9 martial spirit realm and the terrifying power of the Earth-rank martial art, Li, who was only at LV8 martial spirit realm, could not resist the power of this fist. Oh no! At this moment, facing the incoming fiery red fist shadow, Li's face also changed greatly. His opponent's fist made him feel the threat of death, and this feeling was very strong. Bang! Rumble! Li circulated the protective Yuan power around his body to the limit. Before he could regain his senses, his chest was ruthlessly smashed by the fiery red fist shadow, emitting a loud, muffled sound. In an instant, his robe was torn and blood splattered. In the next moment, Li spat out a mouthful of blood and fell outside the arena. His aura suddenly dropped to the lowest. It's a pity that my strength is still a little lacking. Seeing this, Fei-Ren also shook his head helplessly, as if he had already expected Li to lose. From the very beginning, he could tell that Wu Yang was not weak. That was why he wanted to personally take action. However, he could not win against Li's stubborn temper. Li Zinan, it looks like our Wu clan is still superior. Ha ha ha. On the viewing platform, when Wu Tiansheng saw Li vomit blood and retreat in defeat, he laughed heartily on the spot. It seemed that he was finally unable to suppress the joy in his heart. His eyes were filled with ridicule as he looked at Li Zinan. After all, their Wu clan had suppressed the Li clan in the City Lord's Estate competition. After Li's crushing defeat, the only person left in the Li clan's team was the nameless Fei-Ren. In Wu Tiansheng's opinion, although Fei-Ren had some strength and was lucky enough to enter the second round, he was definitely not Wu Yang's opponent. Old dog Wu, you better remember this. This matter is not over yet. Li Zinan also glared fiercely at the complacent Wu Tiansheng. The next moment, his figure flashed and disappeared from the spectator stand. Swoosh! Looking at the extremely weak Li Zinan's face was filled with worry. He then took out a few high-grade healing pills from his spirit ring and fed them to Li. Little Li, are you all right? Li was not only the young master of the Li clan, but also his eldest son. If anything happened to Li, not only would Li Zinan's mentality be greatly affected, it would also be a great loss for the Li clan. After all, in order to cultivate a young genius like Li, who was at the 8th level of the martial spirit realm, the Li clan could be said to have spent a lot of cultivation resources. Cough, cough, cough. Father, I'm fine. It's just a few broken ribs. It's not a big deal. Glancing at Li Zinan in front of him, Li coughed out a few more mouthfuls of blood and laughed dryly. Although he barely kept his life, his ribs were broken and his meridians were injured. He was basically unable to move at the moment. You brat. Seeing that Li was still calm, Li Zinan's brows furrowed. Just as he was about to say something, Fei-Ren's voice came from his side. Senior Li, give him a few pills. His injuries will be healed in less than 3 days. As his voice fell, a jade bottle shot into Li Zinan's arms. In the arena, Wu Yang's figure stood quietly. He also took out a few pills and swallowed them. Although the King of Flame Fist consumed a lot of his Yuan power, after swallowing a few grade 7 pills, the Yuan power consumed could be quickly recovered. The people of the Li clan are only SOSO. Glancing at the dying Li outside the arena, a trace of disdain hung on the corner of Wu Yang's mouth. Although his strength was on par with Li back then, after a period of bitter cultivation, his strength was no longer the same as before. His mastery of the Earth rank martial art King of Flame Fist had also become more and more skilled, reaching the perfection stage. Therefore, Li, who was only at the 8th level of the martial spirit realm, was naturally not his match. In order to defeat Li, he had only used 80% of his strength. Bai Lu, if my next opponent is you, I can take the initiative to admit defeat. As if he had thought of something, Wu Yang turned his head to look at the City Lore Mansion's team. His gaze finally fell on the tall Fong Bai Lu, and he grinned. No need. However, in the face of his eagerness, Fong Bai Lu coldly rejected him. Seeing this scene, Wu Yang's face also froze. He was vaguely embarrassed, and his fists could not help but quietly clench. Just as he was in a daze, in the next moment, he saw a figure cut through the sky and slowly landed on the arena. The person who came was wearing a gray robe and had a delicate face. It was Fei Run, who had not been eliminated in the Li Clan's team. In the next round, I will be your opponent. Fei Run said indifferently, his eyes still calm. Who are you? Kid, with your strength, you are not qualified to be my opponent. Wu Yang turned his gaze and looked at Fei Ren opposite him. In the next moment, Wu Yang said coldly, his tone full of disdain. The other party seemed to be an external aid invited by the Li clan. In the previous battle, he had also defeated a junior of the Wu clan. However, he did not take Fei Ren seriously. In Wu Yang's opinion, Fei Ren's strength was at most similar to Li Li's and was not his match. Now, do you have the qualifications to? With a cold smile, Fei Ren also released a powerful origin energy aura. 10th level of the martial spirit realm. At this moment, sensing the powerful origin energy aura emanating from Fei Ren's body, the faces of everyone present changed drastically. Among them, Wu Yang's expression was solemn. After all, even a genius like Wu Yang was only at the 9th level of the martial spirit realm. Among the juniors of the three major forces present, perhaps only Yun Tianqing from the City Lord Mansion could contend with him. Chapter 620. LV-10 Martial Spirit Realm. Who the hell are you? Wu Yang narrowed his eyes, and the shock on his face gradually faded as he asked in a deep voice. His opponent's cultivation was much stronger than Li Li's, and his face was very unfamiliar. He was not a member of the Li family of Taishan City, but a foreign warrior. In addition, he was also very surprised that the Li family could find such a powerful foreign expert. Am I going to lose to this guy today? LV-10 Martial Spirit Realm. So what? He may not be able to defeat me with just his cultivation advantage. Wu Yang roared in his heart and clenched his fists again. Wisps of fiery red origin energy swept in all directions and immediately spread out in all directions of the arena. As a young master of the Wu family, a fourth-class family, he had defeated his former rival Li Li. His strength was second only to Yun Tianqing of the City Lord's Mansion in the younger generation of Taishan City. If he lost to Fei Ren now, the Wu family would definitely lose face. Swoosh! Ignoring Wu Yang's question, Fei Ren's figure turned into a shadow and immediately disappeared. So fast, outside the arena, the expressions of the spectators changed slightly. His opponent's speed was no slower than a Martial King realm expert. Oh no! At this moment, seeing Fei Ren's figure disappear in an instant, Wu Yang's heart skipped a beat, and he subconsciously circulated his origin energy. Boom! Boom! However, before he could react, Fei Ren's fist flew toward him. Wisps of purple chi could be vaguely seen entwined in it, rolling up a whistling wind. It was like an overlord shaking the mountains and rivers. It was terrifying. Bang! The fist hit his chest, and Wu Yang felt a majestic force hit his chest. The next moment, his face turned pale, and then he flew backward like a kite with a broken string. Puffed! His figure fell outside the arena in a sorry state, and he spat out a few mouthfuls of blood. At this moment, Wu Yang's robe was in tatters, and he looked very embarrassed. Not only was his body covered with wounds, but his origin energy had dropped to an extremely low level. Obviously, he had lost his combat ability. Another insta-kill. The whole battle lasted less than 3 breaths. So powerful, everyone's heart trembled. Although Fei Run had the advantage of a small realm, Wu Yang had been thoroughly defeated. He didn't have the slightest ability to resist. Where did this kid come from? On the spectator stand, Wu Tianxing's face changed slightly when he saw Fei Ren defeat Wu Yang in one move. His wrinkled, old face was filled with bewilderment. As a LV8 Martial King Realm expert, even he could barely see his opponent's speed. It was enough to see how ridiculous Fei Ren's strength was. With the cultivation of a mere LV10 Martial Spirit Realm, he was able to make a veteran LV8 Martial King Realm expert fearful. Good job. On the other side, seeing that Fei Ren had killed Wu Yang in one move and helped Li Li take revenge, Li Zainan's face lit up with joy, sweeping away the gloominess from before. After all, Fei Ren was the guest elder of the Li family and an important foreign aid expert. Now that Fei Ren had defeated Wu Yang, not only did the Li family vent their anger, but they would also not be ranked last in the competition of the city governor's mansion. This kid is really not simple. It seems that except for Tianqing, no one here is a match for him. Interesting. On the spectator's stand not far away, Yin Ao crossed his arms and looked at Fei Ren meaningfully. As a LV9 Martial King Realm expert, although he could not see the secret of the divine Immortal Cauldron in Fei Ren's body, he could roughly guess Fei Ren's strength. The comprehensive strength of Fei Ren in front of him was not inferior to an LV1 Martial King Realm expert. He could even contend with an LV2 Martial King Realm expert. In the arena, after Wu Yang was defeated, the Wu family's team was also eliminated. Among the contestants who were not eliminated, only Fei Ren, Yin Tianqing, and Fong Bailu from the city governor's mansion were left. Miss Fong, please enlighten me. Looking at Fong Bailu, who was slowly stepping forward, Fei Ren did not show any mercy. Once again, wisps of origin power gushed out from his left palm. Earlier, when he defeated Wu Yang, he used the power of an overlord's demonic pattern. However, Fong Bailu was much weaker than Wu Yang, so he did not intend to use the overlord's demonic pattern. Instead, he relied solely on his cultivation to suppress her. Fong Bailu is no match for this guy. Even Wu Yang was defeated. I'm afraid that other than Yin Tianqing from the city governor's mansion, no one can suppress Fei Ren. Looking at the two people standing upright in the arena, the spectators discussed in low voices. They seemed to be shocked by Fei Ren's strength. I admit defeat. As expected, Fong Bailu willingly gave up the challenge as soon as she stepped into the arena. After all, with her current strength, she could only contend with Wu Yang, who was at LV9 Martial Spirit Realm. It would be difficult for her to defeat him. Not to mention, Fei Ren's strength was far superior to Wu Yang's. Thank you for letting me win. Seeing Fong Bailu admit defeat, Fei Ren was not too surprised. In the next moment, he shifted his gaze and fixed it on Yin Tianqing, who was in the city governor's mansion's team. His eyes were full of fighting spirit. Among the people present, only Yin Tianqing, who was at LV1 Martial King Realm, was qualified to be his opponent. As for the others, they were all useless. Fong Bailu has also admitted defeat. Now it seems that only Yin Tianqing from the city governor's mansion and Fei Ren are left. I wonder who will have the last laugh in this city governor's mansion grand competition. I heard that Yin Tianqing stepped in the Martial King realm half a year ago. Although Fei Ren is an expert hired by the Li family, his strength should be slightly weaker than Yin Tianqing's. It will be difficult for him to win. With the arrival of the final battle, the entire arena was filled with discussions, and the atmosphere gradually reached a climax. For a time, countless gazes gathered on Fei Ren and Yin Tianqing. If nothing unexpected happened, the outcome of the battle between the two would determine the final rankings of the Li family and the city governor's mansion. The winner would be the champion, while the loser would be relegated to second place. Junior sister, why did you admit defeat before the battle started? This is not like you at all. Seeing Fong Bailu return to the team, Yin Tianqing grinned and said with a hint of mockery in his tone, "Senior brother Fong, you should know that only you can deal with this person." In the face of Yin Tianqing's mockery, a rare look of helplessness appeared on Fong Bailu's arrogant and cold face. She then shook her head and said indifferently, It was not that she was afraid of Fei Run, but the difference in strength between them was too great. She had no hope of winning, so there was no point in forcing a fight. In the arena, swoosh! With a leap, Yin Tianqing's figure streaked across the sky like a swallow and landed steadily on the stage. He looked at Fei Run with a hint of surprise in his eyes. This time, he originally thought that his opponent would be Wu Yang. After all, Wu Yang was not weak and could easily defeat Li Li in 3 moves. However, Yin Tianqing never expected that his opponent in the final battle would be Fei Run. Moreover, Fei Run was an expert hired by the Li family and not a martial artist from around Taishan City. Chapter 621. You're strong, but it won't be easy for you to defeat me. Yin Tianqing smiled faintly as he stared deeply at Fei Run. He could tell that although his opponent had the strength to contend with an LV1 Martial King realm expert, he had not truly stepped into the Martial King realm. Therefore, he had the upper hand from the beginning of the battle. As everyone knew, after a martial artist stepped into the Martial King realm, the soul in his dantian would condense into a mysterious nascent soul. The nascent soul was very powerful. Not only could it increase the martial artist's strength, but it could also protect a wisp of the martial artist's soul and even possess a body to be reborn. In Yin Tianqing's opinion, even if he could not defeat Fei Run in a short period of time, once the battle dragged on, his opponent was destined to collapse due to the lack of origin power. That was why he was so confident. Whether you can win or not doesn't depend on your mouth. Let me see how strong you are. Fei Run also glanced at Yin Tianqing and clenched his fists. In the next moment, his body shot out like a cannonball. At the same time, he threw a punch at Yin Tianqing's left shoulder. Boom! In an instant, purple chi filled the air. The power of an overlord's magic pattern was instantly released, and a strange purple pattern appeared on the left side of Fei Ren's face. At this moment, it was flickering continuously, and at the same time, it emitted a powerful aura. What a powerful aura! What kind of cultivation method is this? Seeing this scene, the spectators were stunned. Among them, Li Li, who had not recovered from his injuries, widened his eyes and was shocked. Is this Brother Fei's true strength? He could clearly feel the power of his opponent's punch. Not to mention himself, even if he and Wu Yang joined forces, they would not be able to block Fei Ren's punch. In the arena, so fast, facing Fei Ren's violent attack, Yin Tianqing's expression also changed slightly. In the beginning, he had underestimated his opponent's strength. The power of his opponent's punch was enough to severely injure a LV1 Martial King realm expert. Moreover, his speed was superb. Zump! Misty Cloud Sword. Yin Tianqing immediately unsheathed the green spiritual sword at his waist. In the next moment, Yin Tianqing let out a low growl and waved his sword, sending out streaks of piercingly cold sword chi. It was as if layers of clouds had enveloped the mountain, protecting him as he tried to block Fei Ren's punch. TSK. Rumble. Yin Tianqing's fist, which was filled with dense purple chi and the power of the Overlord's demonic inscription, smashed onto the green spiritual sword with a deafening boom. The sword trembled, and Yin Tianqing was pushed back. After landing steadily on the ground, Yin Tianqing's expression gradually turned serious. Although he did not suffer any injuries, there were a few dents on the green spiritual sword in his hand. They seemed to be caused by Fei Ren's punch. LV1 Martial King realm. Not bad. Seeing that Yin Tianqing was unharmed, Fei Ren licked his dry lips as if he had expected this. After all, Yin Tianqing was the #1 genius of the City Lord's mansion. He came from a sword sect along with Mansion Master Yunao. As a famous third-grade sect in the northern continent, the disciples of the sword sect were naturally not ordinary. Even Fong Bailu, who had admitted defeat earlier, was not weak. However, compared to Fei Run, these people's brilliance was overshadowed. You haven't even stepped into the Martial King realm, but you already have the strength to fight against a Martial King. I acknowledge your strength, However, I'm not only representing the City Lord's mansion in this battle, but I'm also representing the honor of the sword sect. Therefore, I won't lose. The green spiritual sword in his hand hung diagonally on the ground. In the next moment, Yin Tianqing took a deep breath. A rare battle intent appeared in his eyes, and his aura surged at the same time. Fei Ren's strength was worthy of him using his full strength. Then let's fight. Seeing that Yin Tianqing's origin power aura had increased several times, Fei Ren let out a low growl and charged out again. Boom! Boom! Purple light burst forth and wrapped around his body. Wisps of berserk glass fire also gushed out from his dantian and instantly spread outwards, transforming into a pink sea of fire that enveloped the entire battle arena. Even the air was filled with the smell of gunpowder from an intense battle. Yin Tianqing had not used his full strength earlier, and Fei Ren had not used his full strength either. He had only used the power of one Overlord's demonic pattern in that punch. Apart from the Overlord's demonic pattern that he had used to defeat Wu Yang, he still had 13 Overlord's demonic patterns in his dantian. Fei Ren didn't know how powerful the power of the 13 Overlord's mage weds would be when all of them were released. However, he was certain that Yin Tianqing, who was only at the LV1 Martial King realm, would not be able to block it. Fog dispelling clouds. Seeing that Fei Ren was about to attack, Yin Tianqing snorted coldly. At the same time, he swung the green spiritual sword in his hand. The sword swept out like a snake out of its hole, breaking through the glaze fire's encirclement. The sharp sword went straight for Fei Ren's heart. Since he was going all out, there was no need to show any mercy. His first move was a fatal one. Overlord's Fist. With a roar, the power of 3 Overlord's demonic patterns was released instantly. Fei Ren threw out a heavy punch to meet his opponent's sword. Bang! Clang clang! Yin Tianqing's fist hit the green spiritual sword hard, producing a piercing sound of silver and iron clashing as if he had hit a steel plate. Then, a trace of blood splattered in the air. A shallow trace of blood was left on Fei Ren's fist. In the next moment, the cyan spiritual sword was sent flying. Then it was stabbed into the ground, and the tail of the sword was trembling. Without a weapon, your skills are useless. Glancing at the bloodstain on his fist, Fei Ren did not think much of it. He looked at his opponent again. Up until now, he only had 10 Overlord's demonic patterns left in his body. On the other hand, Yin Tianqing had lost his natal spiritual treasure and consumed a lot of his origin power. He still had the upper hand in this battle. You're right. Although I'm a disciple of the sword sect, I'm not good at swordsmanship. However, after losing his natal spiritual treasure, the corners of Yin Tianqing's mouth curled up, and an inexplicable smile appeared on his handsome face. What do you mean? Hearing this, Fei Ren frowned slightly. Yin Tianqing seemed to be hiding a trump card that no one knew about. Lawful embodiment of heaven and earth. With another roar, Yin Tianqing's aura changed drastically. His eyes turned dark green, and at the same time, the shadow of an ancient tree appeared behind him. His body also grew several times taller, making him look like a giant that was several stories tall. Heaven grade cultivation method? Seeing the changes in Yin Tianqing's body, Fei Ren's heart skipped a beat. He could feel that Yin Tianqing's origin power aura was increasing rapidly, as if he was preparing for the final attack. Limitless 9 hands. With a long roar, Yin Tianqing's palm struck out. Then, they turned into 9 overlapping shadows that charged toward Fei Ren with boundless power. Come on. In the face of a life-and-death crisis, Fei Ren also roared. Without holding back, he released all 10 Overlord's demonic patterns in his dantian. Then, they gathered at his right leg. Purple chi surged around him, and he looked like a purple god. Overlord sweep. Fei Ren's figure shot up into the sky. In the next moment, he also swept his leg across the air, aiming for Yin Tianqing's vital points. With the support of the 10 Overlord's demonic patterns, the power of this kick was more than 10 times stronger. Moreover, It was surrounded by endless purple chi, and the terrifying momentum was like a raging dragon descending from the sky. Chapter 622. So this is Fei Ren's true strength. How terrifying. This person's strength is no weaker than Yun Tianqing's. Looking at the earth-shattering battle in the arena, the spectators' expressions changed slightly. Some of them were shocked. After all, it was rare to see such a battle between top geniuses. In the arena, the wind and clouds surged. Boom! Rumble! Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, countless overlapping shadows fiercely collided with the furious purple dragon. Following that, a wave of intense yuan energy impact was emitted, and the entire martial arena was instantly in a mess. Debris and gravel flew everywhere and was shrouded in a thick cloud of dust. The two figures also disappeared along with it. This kid actually forced Tianqing into a corner. He's only at LV-10 Martial Spirit Realm and hasn't broken through to the Martial King Realm. How is this possible? In the spectator stand not far away, Yun Ao's face was filled with shock. His eyes were filled with uncertainty. Although he had expected the intensity of the battle from the beginning, the battle between the two was still far beyond his imagination. In other words, Fei Ren's strength had greatly exceeded his expectations. He's indeed a genius. With such strength, he's more than capable of entering the master ranking in the future, let alone the hidden dragon ranking. Looking at the mess and dust on the martial arena, Li Zinan's face was filled with emotion. Soon after, he used both his hands to form a yuan power barrier, protecting the injured Li and the other Li family juniors behind him to avoid being affected by the aftershocks. Regardless of whether Fei Ren won the battle or not, the fact that he could force Yun Tianqing, who was at LV-1 Martial King Realm, into a corner was enough to prove his talent and potential. As for the master ranking that Li Zinan mentioned, it was a ranking that was even higher than the Hidden Dragon ranking. Those who could be listed on it were at least at the Mystique Venerable Realm. As the shockwave gradually dissipated, two figures slowly appeared in the arena. Who won? Seeing this scene, the crowd's hearts tightened. Fei Ren was panting heavily, and his entire body was covered in bloodstains and wounds. At this moment, the origin energy aura on his body was extremely low, as if he was nearing his limit. At the same time, the clothes on his body were extremely tattered, like strips of cloth hanging on his body. His appearance could be said to be extremely miserable. On the other hand, Yun Tianqing was in an even worse state. Not only was he severely injured, but he could not even stand. He knelt on the ground with his hands supporting his body weakly. After struggling for a while, he fell to the ground with a loud thud. It seemed like he was not far from death and was only hanging on by a breath. Although both of them were seriously injured, one was still standing on the ground while the other was lying on the ground, unable to get up. The superiority and inferiority could be seen at a glance. Yun Tianqing actually lost. At this moment, the crowd was in an uproar when they saw Yun Tianqing collapsing to the ground due to exhaustion, while Fei Ren was still standing on the same spot. After all, Yun Tianqing was the #1 genius of the City Lord's Mansion. His origin energy cultivation had reached LV-1 Martial King Realm, and he had a relationship with the Sword Faction. He had mastered many profound cultivation methods and martial arts, and his heaven-grade martial arts have been cultivated to perfection. However, even someone as strong as Yun Tianqing had been defeated by the unknown Fei Ren. Everyone found it hard to believe. He really won. Seeing that Fei Ren was still standing, Li Zinan's face lit up with joy. He seemed to be glad that he had roped in Yun Tianqing. How is this possible? Unlike Li Zinan, Wu Tianqing's old face darkened and instantly became gloomy. Yun Tianqing was a foreign expert invited by the Li family, and the Wu family had been the Li family's sworn enemy for many years. After the City Lord's Mansion competition, Yun Tianqing had become completely famous in Taishan City, and no one dared to underestimate him. At the same time, The Wu family had also been slapped in the face. At the same time, another opponent had appeared out of nowhere. This naturally made Wu Tiansheng very agitated and uneasy. At this moment, if it wasn't for the presence of Yun Ao and Li Zinan at the side, he even wanted to attack and take advantage of the fact that Fei Run was weak and powerless in the arena to completely obliterate him. Swoosh! Yun Ao jumped in front of Yun Tianqing. At this time, he had no time to think. He immediately took out a 9th-grade healing elixir from his spirit ring and hurriedly fed it to Yun Tianqing. At the same time, he circulated his origin energy to help heal Yun Tianqing's injuries. The origin energy entered Yun Tianqing's body and seeped into his meridians and dantian. Yun Ao noticed that Yun Tianqing's body was damaged in many places, and even a few of his bones were broken. At this time, Yun Ao's eyelids twitched slightly, and his face suddenly turned solemn. This kid is quite ruthless, although it was a fair fight in the gladiator arena. As the mansion master of the City Lord's mansion, he would not favor Yun Tianqing just because of his identity. However, the power of Fei Ren's last attack had greatly exceeded his imagination. If it were not for the fact that Yun Tianqing had a cultivation-based advantage and the heaven-grade cultivation method at the perfection stage, Yun Tianqing would not have simply fallen to the ground with serious injuries. He would have died on the spot. Not even a trace of his corpse would be left behind. After all, Fei Ren had just used the power of 10 Overlord Mage Weths in one go. It could be said that he had given Yun Tianqing enough face. The power of the Saint-grade cultivation method, the Overlord's record of Western Shu, was so abnormal. Mansion Master Yun, I've won this battle, right? Just as Yun Ao was healing the unconscious Yun Tianqing, Fei Ren's weak voice slowly came from the opposite side. His tone was light and calm, as if he had not gone through a life-and-death battle earlier. Young man, with your strength, even among the many disciples of the Sword Sect's 18 cities, you can squeeze into the top ranks. Even Tianqing is far inferior to you. Once you break through to the Martial King realm, your future will be limitless. Yun Ao also glanced at Fei Run and sighed with emotion. Then, he nodded and announced the end of the final battle of the City Lord's mansion. It's finally over. Hearing Yun Ao's words, Fei Run, who had reached his limit, finally breathed a sigh of relief. Then, he sat down on the ground with a faint smile on his face. This time, he had helped the Li family to win the City Lord's mansion competition. According to his agreement with Li Zinan, all the rewards would belong to him alone. Now, as his cultivation base continued to increase, he needed more and more cultivation resources. His wealth was also becoming more and more strained. Therefore, Fei Ren needed more primordial stones and money. Swoosh! Lying on the messy fighting ground, Fei Ren gently curled his left index finger. In the next moment, a mysterious aura gushed out and emitted a gentle light. It was as if a milky white ball of light had enveloped his entire left hand. After a few breaths, Fei Ren's scarred left hand had recovered without a trace of injury. In the next moment, the milky white ball of light gradually spread out and gradually enveloped Fei Ren's body. It was as if his entire body was bathed in a layer of sacred light. It was very strange. The power of the Yin-Yang Dao technique. With his current mastery of the Yin-Yang Dao technique, it was not a big problem for him to recover from his injuries. He only needed some time. If there was no external interference, with the magical power of the Yin-Yang Dao technique, Fei Ren would only need about an hour to recover to his peak state. Chapter 6:23. At the same time, with Yun Tianqing's defeat, the Li family had won the first place in the Castellan Mansion tournament. Correspondingly, as the Li family's foreign aid expert, Fei Ren received a large amount of rewards that Li Zinan had promised. Among them, there were nearly 1,000,000 mid-grade primordial stones. There were also several hundred earth-ranked magic cores and 1,000-year-old medicinal herbs. There were also innumerable pills and spirit treasures. However, most of them didn't catch Fei Ren's eye. There was only one exception, and that was the heaven-grade demon core. The reward for the first place in the Castellan Mansion tournament this time was a heaven-grade demon core, which was extremely rare. Originally, everyone thought that the heaven-grade demon core would fall into Yun Tianqing's hands, but they did not expect that it would end up in Fei Ren's hands. The heaven-grade demon core was the core of a heaven-grade demon beast power. Its value was comparable to thousands of high-grade primal stones and was extremely rare. After all, every heaven-grade demon beast could speak the human language. Their intelligence was not inferior to a real human martial artist, and their strength was comparable to a martial king expert. As for the venerable demon beasts that were above heaven-grade demon beasts, they were even more powerful. Not only could they speak the human language, but their strength was also terrifying. They were comparable to a human mystique, venerable expert, and were no different from a real human. It was enough to show that Fei Ren was extremely lucky to have obtained a heaven-grade demon core for free. Before participating in the Castellan Mansion tournament, he did not expect the reward for the first place to be so rich. There was even a heaven-grade demon core. Time passed in the blink of an eye. Unknowingly, a week had passed since the Castellan Mansion tournament. During this week, apart from his daily cultivation and occasional alchemy, Fei Ren did not fall behind in his mastery of the Yin-Yang Dao technique and the Overlord's records of Western Chu. Both of them had reached the greater mastery realm and were even more powerful. In a remote courtyard of the Li Mansion, Rise. Fei Ren stood on the spot with the Immortal refining cauldron floating in front of him. At this moment, his palms were slamming heavily on the cauldron. The glazed fire swept out around him, and various medicinal herbs and demon cores were scattered under his feet. It seemed that he was refining pills. However, at this moment, there was a trace of seriousness on his face. It seemed that the alchemy process did not go smoothly. As far as the eye could see, other than the piles of medicinal dregs and waste ash around the courtyard, there were very few finished pills left. There were less than a dozen pills, and they were placed separately in small glass bottles on the side. Through the aroma and luster of the pills, one could vaguely tell that these pills were not of low grade. They were at least of grade 8 and above. Boom! Boom! Suddenly, there was a loud, rumbling sound in the courtyard. The next moment, the Immortal refining cauldron trembled and spat out a large amount of black gas and medicinal dregs. It seemed to fall heavily to the ground. The inscriptions on the cauldron dimmed, as if announcing the failure of the pill refinement. Boom! I failed again. With my current attainments in the Tao of Alchemy, I'm still unable to refine an Earth-grade pill. Demon core, demon cores, demon heaven pill, demons' pill core. SSS demon pill of not. Earth-level elixirs were extremely rare, and they were several times more precious than 9th-level elixirs. Even veteran masters like the 3 magnates of Taishian City did not have many Earth-level elixirs in their hands. Generally, they would use them as a life-saving measure. At this moment, Fei Ren's spiritual force had already broken through to the 9th level of the profound martial realm. Although it wasn't easy for him to refine a 9th-grade pill, it wasn't too big of a problem. At the very least, he had a 40% chance of success. At most, he would just have to weigh some magic nuclei and herbs. However, he had no idea how to refine an Earth-grade pill above level 9. He basically had no clue at all. The success rate of refining was less than 10%. Ever since the end of the grand competition at the City Lord's Mansion, Fei Ren had been in closed-door cultivation, holed up in the Li Mansion to refine pills. The high-grade medicinal ingredients and Earth-grade monster cores that he had obtained from Li Zenon had almost been used up. Only a rare heaven-grade middle-grade monster core was left in his hands. However, even after spending so many resources, he still couldn't refine a cauldron of Earth-grade medicinal pills. Every refining process seemed to be a little lacking. It was a pity. Fine, looks like I can't force it. It's better to improve my cultivation first. Thinking of this, Faerun immediately gave up on refining Earth-grade medicinal pills and began to cultivate. Now, his cultivation base had reached the 10th level of the martial spirit realm. He was only one step away from the martial king realm. He was only one level away from breaking through the bottleneck. However, after his Dantian had merged with the immortal refining cauldron, these bottlenecks didn't exist for Faerun. As long as he had enough origin energy, he could break through the shackles at any time and improve his cultivation base. The only difference was that due to the huge capacity of his Dantian, the total amount of origin energy that Faerun needed every time he broke through is several times, or even dozens of times, that of an ordinary martial artist. As long as I step into the martial king realm, in addition to a great increase in strength, I can also condense a nascent soul in my Dantian. I can be considered to have another life-saving method. Even if my physical body is destroyed, there is still a chance for me to seize a body and be reborn. Faerun collected his thoughts, and in the next moment, he took out a high-grade spirit ring from his bosom. Then he crushed the spirit ring with his palm, and a large amount of primordial stones was released in an instant. It was as if a white river of primordial stones was circling around his body. These primordial stones were mid-grade primordial stones. They were the reward for him winning first place in the grand competition of the city governor's mansion. The origin energy contained in them was much larger and purer than ordinary low-grade primordial stones. The absorption effect was also several times stronger than low-grade primordial stones. Refined. Suddenly, a large amount of devouring power burst out from his palms. In the next moment, Faerun also let out a roar. At the same time, he operated the record of the Overlord of Western Shu and began to absorb the mid-grade primordial stones around him. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. A large amount of origin energy swept out and slowly merged into his Dantian like a white river of stars. As the large amount of origin energy entered his body, Faerun's aura became stronger and stronger. In a short while, it reached the peak and arrived at the bottleneck of the realm. Half-step to Martial King. The bottleneck of the realm was like a dam in front of him. However, in the next moment, it was hit by the sea of origin energy and collapsed, instantly disappearing by more than half. It's far from enough. At this moment, Faerun's expression became more and more serious. Sweat began to roll down his forehead. In order to successfully break through to the Martial King realm, he had used up more than 1,000,000 mid-grade primordial stones. If he could not break through completely and remained at the half-step to Martial King realm, he would naturally not be satisfied. Break for me. With a flip of his palm, Faerun revealed the only heaven-rank middle-grade monster core in his hand. In the next moment, he crushed the monster core and began to use the divine refining cauldron's devouring power to absorb the large amount of origin energy contained in it. Swoosh! Swoosh! With the influx of a large amount of origin energy, it was like the last straw that broke the camel's back. The bottleneck of the realm was completely destroyed by the sea of origin energy. After a few breaths, Faerun's aura suddenly soared several times. At this moment, purple clouds surrounded him and his long hair danced. He was like a purple spiritual deity that had been born. His aura was astonishing. LV1 Martial King Realm. He had finally stepped into the Martial King Realm and had become an existence that could dominate a region. After all, only by stepping into the Martial King Realm could one be considered to have the initial capital to roam the Black Star continent. As for those below the Martial King Realm, they were all ants. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.